All right, here we go. What's up, everybody? How you doing out there? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Thinker St. James. This is last week's fights. We're going to be going over UFC 307 Pereira versus Rountree Jr., as well as Dana White's Contender Series Week 8. And to do just that, as always, my co-host, the Ohio player, the man who got the job by controversial split decision, Chase Parton. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. After that card, I can tell you it was questionable if I was going to come in here in a good mood. But the way it ended, shout out to fucking Alex, man. That's all I got to say for now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, and if you are new to the show and to the stream, we are going to be going over every single fight from both of these events, starting off with 307. If you got anything that is not pertaining to the fight that we're talking about at the moment, you can put it in the chat and we will come back to it. Thank you to everybody who's hanging out with us. Jong Dong, see you in the chat. What's up, brother? And, you know, we don't usually say it at the start, but like the stream if you are enjoying these. If you've been here before and you dig what we're doing, make sure to hit the like button because it helps us get out to more people who might enjoy it as well. So to start it off, it was 307, of course. Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree Jr. This was in Salt Lake City, Utah. That is elevation. What did you think about the elevation affecting some of these fighters? Do you think it played a part, or how'd you feel about that?
I'm intrigued that you asked right off rip because I feel like you may have the same opinion that I do. I don't think it affected not a single person.
Yeah, that is absolutely kind of how I felt about it as well. Like, I mean, I think that maybe there were a few instances where some people could say that they might have guessed slightly earlier than they might have, but I think that most of the fighters on this card, especially for the fact that there were a good amount of decisions, they actually like got to the decisions pretty well. I mean, I didn't remember anybody like fully imploding on themselves without there being an ample amount of opposition coming back at them to force them into that kind of a position.
Yeah, I definitely can name one off the top of my head of somebody that's like, okay, towards the end of the fight, they were losing it. But no, these dudes, especially for some of the fights, they were like firefights from, there was a good amount of, things being thrown for the entirety of the fight. So I thought this was pretty good for the most part. A lot of weird fucking things going on.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Elevation, no, that wasn't the issue. Trust me.
Yeah, right.
More.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Of all of the wackiness on this card, elevation was not a major factor. At least it didn't seem that way. But to get into some of these fights, let's start at the beginning. Always a good place to start. And this card started with two of the vets, the older guys. You had Court McGee and Tim the Dirty Bird Means. What did you think of this fight?
I want to say first off, I'm an idiot, okay? Because I am the one person that put money on Tim Means, okay? And right when the fight started, now I will give Elite some credit. Elite in the Discord, shout out. He was screaming all week, Court McGee trains at elevation, blah, 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 blah. Now, he did not make it clear, and nobody else I saw made this point. It not only does he train at elevation, he's from Utah.
Utah native. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say that.
So when I'm sitting here, waiting for him to walk out, hanging out, and that, my ears perk up hearing he's from Utah. I'm like, well, shit, nobody mentioned that. That's a big factor, because Tim, I had money on you, so I'm not even gonna act like. Listen, brother, you tapped way too fucking early, man.
Yeah, I mean that was going to be my note. There's not too much to say about this fight, really. It was very, very quick. Court with an easy early neck crank, not even an actual rear naked or a full on choke. It was just a neck crank that did it, which you have seen before. This is nowadays. I want to make that point in general as well, is that because I think that there is a perception that the neck crank is, it's a weaker deal. And I mean, to an extent it is, because you're not putting the pressure on the artery. So it's not necessarily as effective always. However, a neck crank still is very painful, and people can and will tap to it, especially with the physique of the other fighter, the strength, all of the other attributes of the person putting the pressure on. So it's not like this is something that was out of the question to cause a submission in general. However, the quickness that Means tapped to it was, I mean, it was one of those things that you did a double take on it. Like, man, did he? Oh, wow, he really did just tap. This fight's over.
I'm actually like the double take aspect is so crazy you bring up, because like I'm sitting there and like it didn't seem that the fight ended. Like so he's tapping and I'm like, oh, I mean he's just like doing shit. And I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, 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 what are you doing? What are you doing? No, I had him by decision too, which is crazy. I thought we were gonna get a good performance on the feet. He was just gonna, like, I didn't believe elevation was gonna be a factor. I thought Tim Means was just gonna skate all the way to decision. And wow. Wow, 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 wow. I'm so mad. And like again, playing to the factor this was Court McGee's, home territory. Tim, brother, that was scandalous, my guy. That was pretty scandalous in my opinion, because I lost money on it. I'm gonna be the one to call it out. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I mean, all of those things being equal, scandal is certainly appropriate, I would say. I mean, my question really, we'll talk about it when we get to it, but there was a fighter from this card who was recently let go from the promotion, longtime fighter that was in the UFC being let go. My question would be, is it time for Tim Means to find greener pastures? Because I mean, not only the other note that I had was that not only was the neck crank, easily tapped, it easily tapped him, but also that the takedown was very easy as well. I mean, this was a quick sequence, almost like a 1-2 of that. It was the takedown and then right into the neck crank, and then tap was almost instant. It's like, I mean, bro, if you're just going down like that, I mean, maybe it is time for you to hang it up. Dude is 35-17 or 33-17 rather. It's been a good long career, brother. It might be time to pack it up.
I will talk about another list that I want to have created for us here, but I think another list that we should start, excuse me, is list of people that Chase bets on that get cut or retire right after, because this one was pretty epic on my part. Like, to bet Tim Means by decision and he tapped like chicken in first 5 minutes, like I regret a lot, but that was
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah, and I saw your prediction video that you made about it. And I don't think that you were not speaking facts, though. I mean, in his time, Tim Means had gotten nasty. It's just that his time was a long time ago now. So I do think that it is probably time for Means to pack it in. As far as Court McGee goes, however, though, I mean, did I hear correctly that he has 2 more fights on the contract? I might have, maybe I'm mistaking him with someone else, but if that's the case, cool. I just don't know how many more times Court McGee is going to be matched up with another dude who's going to go out that easily. So, we're going to have to see how that ends up working out for him.
Yeah, this one, all I like, the only takeaway that I could say is, okay, they gave the hometown kid, the first fight of the night, and his opponent, gave him the W. Like, he's the one that lost here. Like, Court McGee, like, he didn't do anything impressive that made me like, oh wow, he still got it. Like, no, this just was not for me, man. Just because I lost money. Like, obviously, if I was rooting for Court McGee, great. He won in front of his hometown. Like, he got to have his moment. 2 more fights, good deal. We'll see what happens. But like, there ain't much in my book.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll leave that one there. Honestly, as we had said, there's really not all that much to talk about. Early, quick finish to start this card off. Shout out to Anthony Ganskow in the chat. We will come back to the fight that you're talking about a little bit later in the stream. But moving on, we've got Carla Esparza versus Tisha Pennington, nee Torres. This is, of course, the wife of Raquel Pennington, who we will talk about later on in the stream. Carla Esparza is a 2-time former champion. This is her, or was her, last fight in the organization. A little bit of slight controversy on this one, as there was a couple that had a little bit of controversy with the split decisions and whatnot. This one I don't think was a split. I don't think this one was.
Unanimous.
Yeah, this was a unanimous one, but there were a number of split decisions throughout this card. This not being one of them, but her wife also in a somewhat controversial one, and I would say that this has a little bit of controversy surrounding it as well. What do you think of the fight?
To start off, to give context, this was another one where I'm listening and my ears perk up because I'm watching it and I'm sitting here saying, why did nobody on the history of the planet mention that this is a fucking rematch? Like, Carla Esparza already beat her up. Like, I'm confused on like why people like why,
because that was tough, right? Wasn't that on
yeah.
tough? Yeah.
Yep.
So, I guess people would probably say it's a little bit different being on the show as opposed to, yeah, it's like the same with Moreno and Pantoja. You know what I mean? Like, people kind of count that first one, but not as much or whatever. I think it's one of those slight gray areas, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm coming into this the whole time. I'm like, okay, Pennington, both the Penningtons were winning in my book, for context later as well. Esparza came in here, and as soon as I heard she already beat her, I'm like, well, that was stupid of me to put money on Pennington. She's going to do exactly what she did the first time. And in my opinion, I didn't see the first fight, but she won. Like, what the fuck? Like, where did these judges come off giving unanimous decision to Pennington? This was ridiculous. I was so mad, even though I had money on Pennington. The fact that Esparza came out here and all I'm hearing is she's the most boring fighter ever. She's this and that. Like, she's really fucking not bad. Like, she's kind of decent. So, shout out her.
All right. Well, then I'm going to be raining on Mr. Parton's parade over here because I think that I am unanimously across the board on the opposite side of the equation when it comes to this one. So now, I'll defend it all.
You're the 30-27 judge. Like, that's
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I have my breakdown here, but to start it off, I am certainly the person that would say that Carla is always the first fighter that comes to mind when I think of a boring fighter. That's just it's engraved in my mind that she is the most boring fighter that I can think of. I don't think that this fight necessarily did too much to sway my opinion in any other direction, even though this was her retirement fight. And I say all of that with the context. That's why I put it at the very beginning here. She is a 2-time champion here. I'm not trying to discredit any of her achievements. She does what she does well, but it's always, kind of on the more boring side when she's doing her work. That being said, I had Tisha for round 1 with the striking because Carla, her crucifix wasn't enough. Round 2 was close. The flurry striking was a little more on Tisha's side. Carla got the takedown, but got taken down. Wait, sorry. I'm trying to get this one right here. Carla got the takedown. And I think that still I would have gone with Tisha for round 2. Round 3, Carla's lead leg was eaten to shit. Tisha was doing some good stuff on the feet, but Carla's swarms late in the Carla's swarm with the takedown late didn't make much of a difference to me on that one as well. So yeah, I say if you were being generous, you could give Carla the third round, but I do think that Tisha took all three. So it's I know it's and I say all of that knowing that because I mean I'm looking in the chat too. I'll highlight this right here. Mr. Ganskow saying I thought Carla was going to get the decision. I know that is what a lot of people felt, and obviously the crowd very much felt that because the crowd was booing the ever loving shit out of Tisha. I was very surprised by that, but I got to be on the other side of it based on, especially in the moment I thought that, but then after doing the rewatch, I definitely like confirmed my own suspicions there.
Yeah, I want to say that the crowd was pretty generous. Like, I know we have like, a lot of Americans here, but I want to say that the crowd was on the side of the person who was right most of the time. Like, they were pretty loud about it too. So like when Carla got robbed here, that was kind of iffy, and the crowd they weren't feeling it, but we knew what was coming. Like, gosh, this was right here a good indication that this night was going to be crazy with, interesting shit going on.
For sure. Yeah, definitely that. But yeah, so I mean, look, it's like this is the sport, you can go back and rewatch it and see a bunch of stuff that we can both watch the same fight and see it very differently. You can see things that I missed, I can see things that you missed. But like I said, I rewatched it with a pretty fine-tooth comb, and that's going to be a note that's going to be recurring, is that you should not have to go back and rewatch the fight and count strike by strike in order to get the decision that is correct. I mean, a lot of times there are close fights and it does come down to those kinds of analysis. But if you want to not have the conversation that we're currently having here, you make it definitive, and that's just a note for all fights in general. But going back to the crowd for just a second before we move on, it was a little fucking distasteful that they're booing her. Granted, however you feel about the decision, it was a little distasteful that they're booing her while she's talking about breast cancer awareness. And I guess a relative of Tisha's had breast cancer or she lost a family member. I mean, either which way, it seemed a little bit tacky for the crowd to be going that hard when she was saying that kind of stuff. Because really, if you go back and rewatch her interview, they started booing louder at the point that she was talking about that, and I'm like, yo, guys, like, geez, you can pump the brakes a little bit even if you feel upset about the call.
Yeah, and that, maybe that does show something because, here we are in America. You go back to the France card, the crowd was super pumped, but they were at least respectful. So
Sure. Yeah. So, to round it out, the last note that I had was that the commentary said that it was a robbery, but yeah. So, I guess siding with you guys. I mean, I'm again. I've said what I've said. You can go back and draw your own conclusions.
I want to make a note. I want to say that the commentary, this was the most fourth wall breaks that we've had as the commentary crew. They were done with this card as well. By the end of the night, I know there was a card. John Anik said, I'm going to take my headset off and go have a talk with that ref. Like, that was like, yo, like, are you in my house? Like, this is me. Like,
brother, I'm counting down the seconds until we are getting to that fight.
So it was really like, it was a special card. I want to make another point is in the first round, Carla was laying on top of Tisha, in the crucifix, and he's like, she's smashing Bennington right now. I'm like, yo, she hadn't even done anything. Like, she was laying there, but
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's a good amount of why when you go back and rewatch it, I think that I gave all of the rounds to Tisha is because a lot of the times when they were at range, the strikes that Carla was throwing weren't landing. She was throwing flurries and like, like trying to set up combinations, but they were just at such distance that they weren't landing. And then when they got in tight, Tisha was actually laying on with some power. Like that's I give Pennington some credit there because she is smaller. I mean, obviously both of them are tiny, but like she has been undersized in some of her fights, but she packs a good amount of muscle onto her frame. And when she lets her hands go, when she connects, she's got a decent amount of power. There were a couple of shots that at the very least stunned Esparza. So all things equal, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You go back and rewatch and you can draw your own conclusions. But I think that overall, the right call was made here. That's just how I'm seeing it.
okay.
All right, so that's that. Moving on to another very quick fight here. This is Ryan Spann versus Ovens St. Preux. Another one that there's really not much to say for me. What do you got?
That I don't know if you saw, but it was going around Twitter, and I posted in the Discord. Some guy he hit a bet for Court McGee submission, Ryan Spann round one submission for $15 to 1,500,
Damn.
and I it made me like sit there like thinking like I was trying to make money and I bet on Tim Means by decision. I clearly don't know what's up. You have to know the inside game. You just know that somebody's going to sub somebody in the first round. Like, sure, I guess. But this one, wow, Ovens, I honestly was rooting for him. I was like, he's got some slick kickboxing. Ryan Spann's not great. Like, he's been knocked out by Gushkov. He's been, beat by Anthony Smith. And I was thinking maybe something might happen. But no, definitely not. That choke was so nice. Ryan Spann, I'll give you some credit. That was a good fucking choke.
Yeah, no, it was very nice. And obviously the thing that set it up was the big right hand. I mean, he landed a nice shot that spun OSP around and then got him dragged down. OSP uh another fight just very much like Tim Means before him, where the tap was very quick, but at least in this one, the choke was locked in so tight, or that it was cinched up in a way that it was like, okay, at least this one makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, OSP taps rather quickly, and as I alluded to earlier in the stream, it just came out today that OSP has been let go from the promotion. So yeah, no Von Flue for OSP this time. That is one of his signature moves. Did not have any of that in the bag of tricks this go around, and I guess will not have it in the UFC ever again, unfortunately for him. But I guess it is something to note that OSP had a very long and somewhat productive run in the organization. Fought John Jones. That's something somewhat of an accomplishment in and of itself, even if he did not win, of course. But best of luck to him. Perhaps he'll stick around fighting in some of the other organizations, if he wants to. But if he doesn't, I think that he's done a decent amount in his career, and 27 and 18 is crazy work anyway.
I feel bad, but like whenever these great, I want to say great, but whenever these good strikers get let go from the UFC, and if they're somewhat decent, especially when it comes to the weight class, I'm thinking like, you can go to Karate Combat. Like Luke Rockhold needs an opponent right now, Ovens. Like you might as well, brother.
Yeah, for sure. And that is one of the great things. This is also a one of the big reasons why I talk about the other organizations and try to, follow along as much as I can and get some video content about the other organizations every once in a while when it's possible, is because there are a lot of great places to continue to fight that aren't the UFC. I mean, PFL is doing some big things in multiple regions now. Like you said, Karate Combat, one, of course, is doing big things always. You can go over and fight in Ryzen, Brave, any of even some of the feeder organizations will have you back. Jorge Masvidal here in Florida is doing some great things. I mean, there's a lot of great places to fight if you want to continue on. You just have to make that decision that you actually really want to, because again, he did eat a big shot. So that set up the sequence, but when he was in the position to be tapped, he tapped rather quickly. So maybe it is just time to hang him up.
Yeah, and I agree, Anthony. Yeah, Karate Combat, I don't know if it's right now number 2, but it's definitely on its way up there. They just need a lot more. They need more events, and then they need more, people like Ovens, Luke Rockhold, Raphael, whatever his last name was. And then, etc. The dude who knocked out James Vick.
Oh, I don't think that is him, but either which way, yeah. I mean, there are plenty of great places to fight, and that is that's certainly one of them. And those fights are very entertaining, man. I mean, yeah, that's they're doing some good stuff over there. Plus, who does not like the Pit? I mean, the
Yeah,
Pit
the
is
pit's
fucking
cool.
awesome, So I guess that's really all there is to say about that fight. But this fight coming up here now, this is the one that I've been waiting to talk about. This is Cesar Almeida versus Ihor Potieria. Now, if you are new to this channel, you might not know that I cover the regulation of the sport a good amount in my videos because I think that MMA is a unique sport in the sense that it is very subjective and it is very fast. Like you are having referees and then to an extent thereafter, the judges and the commissions in general making calls on motions that happen in the blink of an eye. There's a lot of things that can be missed. There's a lot of just in general fast motions that have to be decided upon very quickly when it comes to MMA. So I have an interest in how the sport is regulated, not because I want there to be an immense amount of regulation on the sport. I want it to be as relatively open as it can be, so that the combat is exciting and entertaining, but that there needs to be oversight, and the oversight needs to be correct. I mean, like there needs to be a standard that these referees and judges and all of the people who go into the regulation of the sport, there's a standard that they have to meet. This is yet another example of a referee who did not meet that standard. So I'm just going to run this down real quick, and then I'm going to shut up and let Chase give his assessment of all of this. But the first thing to note is that Almeida was leading with his fingers the entire fight. So all of the craziness really starts in round 2, but be aware that in round 1, he was still leading with his fingers. And I think that the ref might have said something about the fingers in round 1, but they didn't come into play until round 2. But Almeida takes round 1 pretty handily, but then the pokes begin in round 2. There is one poke followed by the rare dick punch. You do not see the dick punch very often, but the dick punch made an appearance. So you get the 1-2 combination of the poke plus the dick punch. Then also in that, which they didn't even really talk about on commentary, but they played it in the picture-in-picture, is that there was also a slight head clash in there as well. So it was really a 3-piece combo in there. You had the poke, the dick punch, and a head clash all in quick succession. It looked like Almeida might have gotten more of the head clash than Pereira did, but the dick punch and the eye poke were squarely to Pereira. So that's off the bat, right? Ref didn't call any of that. He stops it for the dick punch, but he didn't call the eye poke. He actually had said, like, hey, keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. But the dick punch stops the action. Immediately follows the break in the action with another poke to the other eye, which the ref warns about, but does not take a point for. In the stoppage then, the ref asks Ihor if he wants water, which Ihor says, yeah, I'll take some water. The commission at the side of the cage says, you can't do that. Like, he's not allowed to have water mid-fight. So that doesn't happen. They call time back in. Almeida pokes another time. So this is now 3 eye pokes at this point, 1 head clash, 1 punch to the dick, and no point deduction. I mean, I just that off the bat. I mean, like, you could talk about the merits of the fight itself, but I want that to be the overarching umbrella for everything when it comes to this fight, because anything else that we talk about after that has to be viewed through the lens, the optics of all of those fouls that were not properly addressed. So you can say, because I mean, really, what I'll end up going to later, and then I promise I'm done, Chase. I promise you, bro. What I'll end up going to later is that you can probably give Almeida most of these rounds. If you'd be generous to give Pereira any of them, but you have to judge it all through that lens with all of this bullshit that was caused by this referee poorly officiating this fight. End of rant. Go ahead, my dude.
I'm going to correct you because I think
Okay.
my telling of the story is going to be more accurate. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So first we saw an eye poke. Okay. And this one, Cesar Almeida was like, cool, I got you. Yeah, I did it. I'm good. Ref doesn't stop it. Ref's like, come, what are you doing? Continue. Like, turn back around, get back in the fight. Okay. Ihor's obviously upset, frustrated. So they go back into the fight a little later. This was maybe like 30 seconds later. I don't know if it was maybe as long as I'm thinking. And then, yes, you are correct. We got the infamous eye poke to the other eye and then the dick punch. Okay. Ihor is going to the corner. They break it up finally. And the ref is like, are you ready? Like, are you good to go? Like, rushing, bro. Like, not even giving him his time. Like, are you good to go? Like, come on, let's get the fight going again. So then they go back into it. And then we get another eye poke. The ref does not stop it, but Ihor turns back around and then he has like some verbal altercation with Caesar. Like they obviously probably don't speak the same language, and they had a little moment. And then I believe there was one more eye poke after that. But the one thing I want to go into is later is that this ref not only was scandalous with his officiating at that point with the water and like didn't even give him a towel, didn't know the rules, didn't give him the allotted time. We get into the third round and he clearly has money on Cesar Almeida. That like there was no other way around it. At the moment Ihor Potieria had a glimpse of like success, he's got him up against the cage. Bro is screaming work. Okay, they're screaming work, do something, do it. And like Ihor is throwing knees, punches, like he's doing something. So he breaks him off the cage. Okay, they stand for a second, they go right back to the cage. And he's like, come on, guys, work, work. And it's like, yo, what are you doing? Like, he's literally winning the position. Like, stop, please. Like, Ihor, I hate to say this to you, bro, but you're not going to win this. Like, there was no chance Ihor was going to win this fight after I saw that shit. And so they do it a couple more times. Like, it was to the point where it's like, no way they're going to go back to the clinch and no way he's going to break it up. I don't know if you saw in the meme page I dropped, it was the Impractical Jokers meme. It's like, now break them up one more time. And
Yeah.
it's like, yo, like, oh my gosh, it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. Then we get to the bell and it's like, I can't believe Ihor needs to do something about that. I was wondering if he could like file an appeal or something. Like there's got to be something done about that one. That ref, when I was talking about lists earlier, we need some lists, ongoing lists, officiators that we need to make sure we know their name. But like when we see this dude again, take all bets off the table. Just don't even fucking try. Like it's crazy to me. And then officiating, like it pisses me off. It pisses me off. Not only, okay, actually going back to our rant, no points were taken after the two eye pokes, right? So we had the eye poke, then the eye poke dick shot. That was the only stoppage we had. Warning to Cesar Almeida, put your fingers away, yada, yada, yada. Then we get more eye pokes. And I'm sitting here questioning, why is there no point taken away? Why are 2 points not being taken away at this point? And it was absolutely ridiculous. 30-27 across the board for a fight where a dude is getting blinded left and right, punched in the dick. He's getting told that he can't even do mixed martial arts. It's cool when he's getting kickboxed and fucking punched in the face, but when he clenches up against the cage, now it's an issue. Come on, ref. Like, you get better, man. That was ridiculous. And I said earlier, this was fourth wall breaking left and right by the commentary crew. John Anik was fuming at this fight. And I ran rightfully so, bro. Rightfully so.
Yeah, most definitely. And funnily enough, yes, you're telling this more accurate because I misread the notes. I actually that was only up until the end of round 2. So round 3, all of that other stuff with the breaks were in there as well. Yes, 3 times he breaks up standard clinches. I mean, this dude was like, I think on the watch along, me and Vitz were saying that, maybe this guy is more of a boxing ref that just somehow ended up in an MMA match or whatever. Either which way, this dude's name is Dave Sejsted, I think is how you pronounce it. Sejsted. And our lovely producer Catherine, who helps us out with the watch alongs, was looking it up, and apparently this guy is more so, I guess, kickboxing or something like that. So it did make a little bit of sense there, but that does not fucking matter. You're in MMA right now, brother. You need to be reffing for MMA, and you're absolutely right about John Anik. That was definitely pretty goddamn hilarious. There was one point, I think, at the third breakup of a standard clinch that John Anik was like, "Oh, come on!" He finally busted out, and it's like, yeah, no, I was feeling the same way. John Anik is a good conduit of how like an informed person,
the fan reaction.
Exactly. If you're a fan of the sport and you're following along, he's somebody who is an accurate representation of how we're viewing things. So yeah, you're exactly right though. I mean, Almeida getting the 30-27 with the point deduction. If it was just a single point deduction, like there probably was a case that more than one would have been warranted there, but it might have still ended up being a 29-27 just because all of that, the work that Almeida was doing was decent, but that's the problem with poor officiating in general. Not only are you discounting the fighter who just had all of these fouls done to him, but you're also taking like the fighter who's in the dominant position is now like it's tainting the view of him as well, even if it is stuff that he's doing. And I know that that's like, oh, well, he shouldn't be doing it. Of course, you're absolutely correct. He should not be doing it in the first place. But it's unfortunate for Cesar Almeida now that he has this victory that now will always have this asterisk for anybody who's watching along, that he's Pokey McFingers over here.
Yeah, and we're talking about eye pokes, and the dude in the chat realize. I know he knows all about eye pokes. Talking about Weidman, they get away with this shit. They get away with these fucking ridiculous eye pokes. They don't discredit the fighter who's doing it. They reward them with W's. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, also highlight here Death Before Dishonor saying that it should have been a no contest. I mean, after the fact, it's extremely rare that they overturn. But I mean, this is certainly a fight where there is a strong case to be made, because the commentary was saying it that Mike Beltran, who I guess was the senior officiator for this event, the way they're making it sound, at least, I think that they always have like one of the higher level senior referees as like the overseer of officiation. Apparently he was sitting right next to the commentary team and was losing his mind. So it's like, if your oversight person is getting pissed off to that extent, the commentary is obviously noticing it. I mean, now granted, the commentary and the commission are separate. Of course, the organization and the commission are not one and the same. Regardless, everybody, you got a pair of fucking eyes. You saw what the hell happened. The only person who couldn't see what was going on was Ihor Potieria after being poked so many fucking times. So yeah, I would think that there probably is a case for that fight to be overturned. However, it is extremely rare, and that is another thing that the commissions need to get on board with, is that if you are not going to have standardization, you have the ABC, which is the oversight of all of the commissions around the country and to some extent some international territories. You're getting their initiatives down from them. If you're not going to follow them to the letter of the law, there needs to be recourse for these fighters in situations like this. I think that it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it's just crazy. We get updated gloves, and it's like, oh, these are going to prevent this. And it's like, dude, they ain't preventing nothing when the fighters are continuously, purposely doing, they're bending the rules. It's
Yeah,
whatever.
and that's what I mean though too, is that like I don't know if you could necessarily say that Cesar Almeida or even really that Chris Weidman were specifically going out there to get away with eye pokes. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that that's in their mind, that like I'm going to go out there and lead with my fingers and I'm going to get these eye pokes and there's nothing that's going to happen because of it. Like I don't think that's what their intentions are. But that is why the system is in place as it is. It's like whether you're doing it intentionally or not, you got your warnings. Now you take points. If you don't take the points, then all the warnings in the world don't mean shit. That's another good point to bring up with all of this, is that the judges, if it goes to the decision like it did in this fight, the judges still have to judge the fight based on what was in the cage. So if
Yeah.
they don't have any point deductions to say that demerits one of these rounds or two or whatever, how many points are deducted, then it's still okay. Well, if it was legal by the decision of the referee, then I have to go off of that. So it's just, it taints everything when you have a situation like this. Travesty of officiating.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the stuff that makes the Emma episode. So you should be happy that you're getting a job right now.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. got to synthesize all of this down into something that'll make sense on video. But yeah, there's certainly, obviously, we've talked about it pretty well through at this point. Obviously, the opinions are very strong here. So we'll see what ends up happening going forward. If anything does come down as far as them overturning it, I doubt that that'll be the case. I think Anakin in the chat is probably correct, that they're just going to reward him with another fight, even though Ihor has been on a bit of a rocky road here. And that's really all that you can say about it in the end. Just hope, hope beyond hope that Dave Segestad is not your referee when you're going into a fight in Utah.
Well, like Anthony just said, it's not just this ref. There's
Oh,
plenty
no, there
more.
are plenty more. Absolutely. And this is why I talk about this stuff so much, is because this is it's a problem that plagues this sport. What I said, if you go back on the channel, I did a video about the Atlantic City card earlier this year. And one thing that I talk a lot about officiating in that, because that was the card with the Chris Weidman fight. And one of the things that I said is that you should not be, as a fighter, you should not be worried about going into a fight if you don't have Chris Tione or Mike Beltran or, fucking take your pick, Herb Dean, some of the guys that are going to be on the better side of the officiating. And even those guys have had their moments. Of course, it's a tough job. I'm not like I cover it so much because it's a tough job and because these actions are so in the moment, so very quick. You have to be really on your toes. It takes a certain type of person to be a good referee. All of that being said, you shouldn't, as a fighter, have to go into a fight nervous that you might lose the fight because of poor officiating. So
Yeah.
something has to be done.
Well, and actually, if you want to even go deeper with it, Ihor Potieria is on the opposite end of another, maybe possibly scandalous, because he just got kneed in the head on the way down by Michelle Pereira. Just his last fight.
Yes, indeed, he did, didn't he?
And I know,
He was
he was never the one to pull that card, but I know a lot of people were online talking about, oh, this is a need to a grounded opponent, blah 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 blah. So who knows, man? Shout out
Yeah,
him for being a true guy though, because he just seems like he just wants to go in there and fight.
for sure. And when we've talked this one through, so we don't have to keep dwelling on it. But one
Yeah.
last thing I did want to mention here is just because it's a good point too. Anthony Ganskow here in the chat saying that cage grabbing is also legal nowadays. Manchester. I don't think that we talked enough about that on the Manchester card, because Vitz King on the watch alongs brings that one up regularly now, and I keep meaning to mention that yeah, man, there were so many cage grabs in Manchester that it is like they're not calling fence grabs. So I mean, again, there is just a lack of consistency across the board when it comes to the regulation of the sport that needs to be addressed in a legitimate way and then implemented across the board. Like, the problem is that you have the ABC as the top-down organization, and then every commission thereafter in all of these different territories somewhat gets to follow as much or as little as they want to, or as they know how to. I think that that's really the bigger point, is that since it's just a newer sport, there's not a ton of money in it for the fighters, let alone for officiating committees and stuff like that. I just don't think that the education has been there yet to get everybody on the same page. Education is going to be a big component of it, and then just having people who are up to the challenge of being the top level, because you have these fighters that are the top level. The officiating should also reflect that.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, let's move on before I go into another hour and a half on that one. Let's move on to Austin Hubbard versus Alexander Hernandez. What'd you think of this fight?
I think that this was another fight, same with the Pennington and Esparza fight. I thought at the beginning that Alexander Hernandez should come in here and win this, because Austin Hubbard is not that impressive to me. But by the end of this fight, I thought Austin Hubbard did a lot more to win this fight. And honestly, I didn't see too much of a difference in the Discord and or online. And what's crazy is, and I want to make this point, this is the only point I have, because not gonna lie, I was kind of coasting on this one. This fight I didn't care too much. So the fact that one judge gave 30-27 Austin Hubbard, and then the other two gave 29-28 for Alexander Hernandez, that's such a telling story that nobody knew what the fuck was going on. If all three judges gave Hernandez the nod, okay, cool. What was I watching? But the fact that this dude gave a 30-27, what were you watching, or what were they watching? Who was watching the wrong fight here? Because that's crazy.
Yeah, this fight right here is a good example as to why. And again, I'm not trying to bring it back to the committee and the oversight and all this kind of stuff. I'm trying to get away from it. I promise.
You and
But
Larry both right now.
I know. Well, the chat's on fire for valid reason. Everything I'm seeing, everything that's in the chat right now, guys. I mean, like, you're all making great points. But one thing I'd want to say about this fight specifically is that this card in general, because of how tight some of these fights were and the nature of some of them, and specifically this fight, this was a bad card for Salt Lake City. This was a bad card for a state that is not as accustomed to MMA in general. Like, this really would have done better in Las Vegas, or in California, maybe to a lesser extent New York, but like a territory that is steeped in MMA probably would have had a better handle on how to gauge these fights. Now, I say all of that again, I will be the dissenting opinion here. Again, I did give it 29-28 to Hernandez after the rewatch. But I could see the argument on the other side of it. Like I have honestly for a couple of these. Like, I mean, even in the Esparza fight that I was talking about earlier, like I can still see where the other side is getting their information from. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's
Right.
completely foreign to me. This fight is that way as well. But I think that the reason in this specific fight is that Hubbard's striking is sneakier. Like he was finding openings and getting a lot of really effective striking going, but it was kind of in within motions. Like it was fluid. When Hernandez was coming in, he was picking shots decently. A couple of times that he got some combos that were running a little bit like concurrent to other motion. I think that the deciding factor for Hernandez was that he was a little bit more explosive with his output and his actions were a little bit bigger. So from the eye test for the judges, it looked like it was more impact than what Hubbard was putting out. That would be my assessment of it anyway.
Yeah, I just like I think somebody said just a minute ago in the chat, the damage was on Hernandez's face throughout the fight. And I think
Sure.
that's what maybe swayed me because I don't really think he was doing too much in my opinion.
I mean, it's like I said. I mean, like when he was doing stuff, it was bigger. Like
Mhm.
he landed some decent shots. I mean, like the takedown defense was very nice for him as well. I think that played a part. And when he was striking, at range and laying a couple of heavier shots on, they looked heavier. I mean, Hubbard was just sliding them in. Like I think a more trained eye probably would have given a little bit more credit to the striking of Hubbard. And like you said, the damage was obviously noticeable, but overall, I think that Hernandez did do just enough, like just for me personally. But this is one that I would not have been mad either way. Honestly, it was a very close fight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was just coasting through this one. I knew once this fight came on, like even beforehand, like this is an actual piss break fight. Like I could care less about this one. There's plenty of people, listen, there's plenty of people who aren't the big ticket, big name guys. Like obviously Marina Rodriguez, Yasmin, Lucinda. I was more excited for
Oh,
that fight than this fight. Like talk about that one compared to this one. I
oh
was more
yeah, yeah, yeah,
excited
gotcha,
for
yeah.
them than these. Like
Mhm.
anybody on this card was a better fight than these ones. This one was just not there for me.
For sure. I mean, like Hubbard is a dude that was on the Ultimate Fighter. He'd been out of the organization, came back into the organization. So I do have a little bit of a soft spot for him, having covered his season on the channel. But that being said, I was actually talking to Bloomis. Shout out to Bloomis from the Discord. Before these fights, he was asking me my opinion of this one, and I had said at the time, I was like, he asked me who I thought was going to win, and I said that I thought Hernandez was going to win because he is younger and faster. And Bloomis pointed out that they are actually the same age, and I was like, well, that should tell you something, like
Yeah,
because I just in my mind had it that Hubbard was a little bit of an older guy, because of the way he moves. Like it's, yeah, I was not super impressed. And then Hernandez is about as candy cane a record as you can get. Super checkered, he's one fight on, one fight off. And so I can understand the lack of overwhelming interest in this fight. And one other thing, just to highlight it because I said it earlier, and it bears repeating. These fighters got to put stamps on these rounds. This is the overarching point for a lot of this. If you want it, if we should not have to go over it with a fine tooth comb to find a winner. This sport is already as close as it can be when you are one on one with another person locked inside of a cage. Don't make it any closer than it has to be. Go out there and win. This card is a really decent case for the scoring and the judging that goes on in one. The universal rules of MMA that judges as a fight as opposed to round by round scoring.
yeah.
If
I
you
mean,
go out there with the incentive to win, you don't have to worry about this shit.
yeah, and I agree. Towards the end of the card, we'll talk about a fight where like the judging. I feel like the scoring system failed the fan base. And we're getting to the point with some of these fights, maybe not this one per se, but Esparza and Pennington not so much. But later on in the card, I'm telling you, we'll talk about these fights that just the scoring system failed us, and we'll talk about it.
For sure. One other thing to mention in this fight, which I just thought was an interesting note, and I don't know if anybody, maybe the chat might know a little bit about this, but I heard on commentary that apparently Mark Montoya's Factory X has had a few fighters defecting from the camp, one of those being Alex Hernandez, and another one being Brandon Royval, who is fighting Tatsuro Taira this coming weekend. They're calling themselves the Mile High Militia or the Dropouts. What is going on at Factory X is my question. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't.
that sounds pretty goofy. They think they're the fighting nerds now, but it's okay.
I just, it makes me wonder what's happening at Factory X in general. If I mean, Mark Montoya is a longtime coach and has graduated some decent fighters for sure. Uh, I'm curious what's happening out there over in Colorado. But again, just something to throw out there for the future. Just keep an eye on that in case there's any other major defections, and perhaps there might be some interesting stuff coming out in the future, depending on what shakes out with all of that. Anyway,
Yeah, it actually does say on ESPN the Mile High Militia is their team. Yeah,
oh well,
for
so how about
Alexander
that?
Hernandez. Yeah,
Yeah, so and I mean, just I guess also something to keep in mind for Royval. As I said, he's fighting this coming weekend. So
yeah. I'm about to double
um,
check if his says it too, which I assume it does if his says it. But I'm just
yeah,
curious.
Royval was in the corner of Alex
Yep.
Hernandez during their fight.
Yes, it
So
is.
during the fight with Hubbard, that is.
Yep.
Yeah, so just again, just something interesting to note, and we'll see how if at all that plays into um, Royval's fight coming up. But again, just an interesting little point because those are the kinds of things that could eventually come out with more information going forward. That's like, oh wow, that's kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah.
All right, well, you talked about piss break fights. Um, I know you said that you were more excited for this one. This fight turned out to be a little bit of a dud to me. This is Marina Rodriguez versus Yasmin Lucindo. Uh, did this fight live up to those expectations that you had for it?
I mean, I didn't mind this fight. I was rooting for Marina. Like I thought Marina was going to win this one. I will cope on this one, and I thought Marina won this. But I mean, this wasn't like horrible in my opinion. Maybe I was sitting here rooting for the underdog, like more engaged than I should have been. But no, this one was fine. This was a cool decision. Throughout a fine card, fine in quotations.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, again, I think I'm being a little hyperbolic myself. It wasn't the worst fight in the world. The one thing that I have in the notes that I think is the biggest glaring one of them all is that Rodriguez has nothing off of her back, bro. Completely accepting the
Yeah.
positions on the ground. I mean, like, granted, of course, she wants to strike. She's, a striker by nature, but like, we'll talk about another fight here where someone got caught in a position and seemed to accept it for way too long. This was one that was foreshadowing of that because I mean, Marina had slightly better striking, I would say, but the control time just outweighed it for the judges. This was another split decision here, or one of many, I should say. Yeah, I mean, it went to Lucindo based on that control, and Rodriguez just needs to really get something going off of her back because you cannot just stay on the ground accepting it the entire time. It's not going to work out for you.
No, she needs to get up out the league because she's been here too long. She's not going to get no skills off her back if she ain't got them by now. And
Yeah, 17-5-2. Come on.
yeah, and it's like Lucindo is not good. Like, I mean, she's not great. Maybe I'm saying not good is very harsh. Maybe she's not great. Not many people are great, but like the fact that Lucindo was able to just get you on the ground and she offered not much, honestly. So the fact, like, if there was somebody who was a good grappler, like Marina would be cooked. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, for
and
sure.
and then on the backside of that, Lucindo didn't really show me much here. I'm gonna need another performance that, against somebody like she's on a win streak, but like these names, okay, Marina Rodriguez was her first named like opponent kind of deal, it looks like, but she's been here for a while. Like, so I'm not seeing it with her. But we see this all the time, and it's getting, maybe we're just getting too much of it. This Brazilian tank base, like they're just, I don't know. Cachoeira, Lucindo, I can name a
Nunez.
couple more.
Yeah.
Nunez, I mean, what's the other one? The other Nunez. The
Well, Josini Nunes is who I was talking about. Yeah.
Justini. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So I don't know. Just didn't do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Bit of a yawn, but good on Lucindo for getting her win. And yeah, I think that what'll end up happening there is that as she climbs up, she'll start getting into the mix where people who are going to give her bigger problems are going to start arising. So we'll see if she's up to the task when it comes to some better competition. But yeah, not much gained on either side of this one, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to a fight where there was more gained. This is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Joaquin Buckley. Man, this turned out to be a pretty spirited fight. One that I would say, aside from the finish, which I would not have necessarily predicted exactly as it played out, aside from that, I thought that this fight went pretty much as I had predicted it, as I expected it to go. A lot of pressure from Buckley, a lot of wrestle fucky type action there. And the commentary was saying that they thought Wonder Boy was still as fast as he once was. I would disagree.
Oh my goodness. You're okay. I'm watching it and I'm like, obviously I picked Buckley to win. And I want to make a point. Is he won this like the favorite that he was at minus 225? That is because we assume he's gonna get him to the ground and finish. Nobody in the history thought like, oh, Buckley's gonna finish Wonder Boy on the feet. Like, come on, that's
True.
like unheard of. Especially he only has one finish on the feet. Like he's only been finished one time. So when I'm watching it, I'm like thinking to myself, and I even said it out loud. It's like it's a shame that this is an old Wonder Boy we're watching, because he would be cooking right now if he was like just a little bit. Give us a few less years, man. Just join the UFC just a couple years earlier, and like, man, this would be such a good watch. But he definitely slowed down. Had some impressive moments, but he wasn't kicking as much, which was kind of weird, I thought.
Well, I think that the issue there was that when he did go for his kicks, like again, yeah, I think you're right on the money. It's not that he is slow; he is slower.
Yeah.
I mean, Wonder Boy still, he was still moving decently, but the issue is that Buckley, for as much bulk as he packs on that frame, he is a shorter guy and he moves amazingly fast. I mean, like he is very dynamic in there. And I think that when Wonder Boy was going to set up some of his kicks, Buckley was just able to get out of the way and duck them. A lot of times he was just going right under him, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So, I think that eventually Wonder Boy was just like, well, these aren't working. I need to adjust,
Yeah, I actually think glad you made that point. The height, it was weird. The opposite effect of height was a factor, because Wonder Boy's kicks were just going right over Buckley. Like he was just ducking them, which was like weird. You don't see Wonder Boy with kicks. Like, why? How is he missing kicks other than him just like not understanding that he's too fucking tall for it? Like it is kind of crazy.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing that I had that on Wonder Boy's side was that because I mean, for some reason, I guess his corner thought he was up 2 rounds going into that third. I was like, I don't know about all that, but okay.
a lot of people did.
Well, I mean, I maybe one, but I don't think I necessarily would have given him both of those rounds. Either way, though, the note that I had was that Wonder Boy got some decent elbows in the clinch, which I thought was really good because we knew that Buckley was going to be doing a lot of that. So it was good that he anticipated that with the elbows. But then, I mean, yeah, the I would say that Joaquin Buckley, I know you're a big basketball guy. Maybe a little bit of like the Muggsy Bogues of MMA over here to an extent. I mean, shorter guy that's getting it done and, using his size a little bit to his advantage, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know enough about Muggsy Bogues to know if that's an apt comparison.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
But
not. I take it back.
Yeah, I mean, like, we'll not get into basketball talk, but Buckley is very good for his size. Like, he's not like super short. Like Therese Finney is short. Like, that's a middleweight that's like 5'7", like 5'8". Like, so
Yeah.
talk about Mighty Mouse type of deal. Like, that's that guy. Buckley, he's unfortunately facing a lot of taller competition, I think, is the problem too, because like he's like an older school sized welterweight or whatever, like where everybody's like sized up now. So like
Yeah.
But in this matchup, I thought he fought a lot like Jeff Neal did against Ian Gary. Like he was doing a lot of like bouncing around kind of deal. And I don't know, to his credit, I don't know if that's going to work for him in the future. Maybe that was the game plan for this one. Jump around and catch him with a fucking meaty hook, like
I mean, well, yeah, gotta mention this this knockout in in all of its glory. I mean, a jumping hook. I think it was in the watch along. Somebody in the chat had said that like Buckley is moving like a Looney Tunes character, and I mean, I don't think that there's more of a Looney Tunes knockout than that one, dude. He jumped off the ground and then swung around with the hook. It was like I I mean, I'm sure I've seen it before, but not exactly like that, man. I mean, that was an interesting one. It was like you can't really call it a Superman because he didn't really go forward in the motion, but it was a flying hook of some sort, and man, did it land.
yeah. And so after this, I thought to myself, Buckley, there's a certain path for Buckley right now where he could be champ. I think he could give Bilal a really good run for his money right now. This form of Buckley would give Bilal a good run for his money. But I wish he would have called out Ian Gary or something, even though I don't think he would win that. But
Well,
that's
I
just
mean, if you're saying that he could give Bilal a run, then shouldn't he be able to give Ian one too?
I think it's a different fight. I think Ian Gary is just like a youthful Stephen Thompson. If people want to say Stephen Thompson was up 2-0, like I think Wonder Boy's speed, compared to Ian Gary now. I think Ian Gary will just eat Buckley up, just like he did Jeff Neal. Like I think that's will be a very similar style matchup to watch. But
Fair enough. Well, and I guess the note there is that now Buckley is top 10. So that's, a pretty decent little jump for him. And he called out Kamaru Usman, which DC
oh,
thought was a good call out compared to his last one. Obviously, DC and him have had words in the past. They sort of squashed it. I watched a little bit of that interview. I thought it was interesting to hear DC putting on his big brother, old man, dad persona to school young Buckley over here to an extent. But either which way, I think the call out was good, and I like that fight. That would be a really good fight to test where Kamaru Usman really is at this point, because I think for Kamaru Usman. Just a slight little tangent here, but just with when it comes to Kamaru, like these last fights that he's been in have not really been a good representation of the current version of him, because they, like the one with Hamzat was a little bit weird. I mean, like, it's short notice and
want
the
two
way
days notice,
and
whatever.
the weight class differential there. I mean, it's I don't think that it has been an appropriate like representation of where he might still be at as the once extremely dominant champion that he was. So if he's going to come back into welterweight and want to continue on in some capacity, I think that fight makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think what is best about this is that Wonder Boy dropping in the ranks is not so bad, because as long as he can keep a contract, he could keep doing this for a while and face some cans, and we could see some good highlights of an old man Wonder Boy coming up. I think this will be a really good gatekeeper moment for him. He could replace Kevin Holland. I mean, not replace, but they could coexist kind of deal.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. That was a note that came through in the watch along as well. The chat was saying, "Oh, is it time for him to retire?" I definitely don't think so. I mean, he himself had said that he feels, physically 25. Granted, of course, your body says otherwise, but regardless, if he wants to stick around and keep fighting, I mean, yeah, I agree. I think that there's really not a big reason for him to retire based on this fight specifically. It's just a matter of what he's able to do and who they match him up against. And of course, Anthony Ganscow going back to Karate Combat, that
Yeah.
is always an option for Wonder Boy for sure.
Yeah, that's what I said exactly after this fight. I said if he retires, Karate Combat was made for Wonder Boy. He will go be the king of it. Like that will
Yeah.
be he will get a crown over there. So,
Yeah, he is the prototype of what they would want in that
yeah.
organization for sure. So we'll see what he does. But yeah, shout out to Buckley though, nice win, and yeah, much more appropriate call out than the Connor one.
It was a hard win to watch. Even though I knew Buckley was going to win. Wow, was it? Oh god, I'll tell you funny, just to give you a story. I
Yeah,
was
sure.
watching this fight and I went over to see the striking numbers on ESPN, and like it said final. KO, TKO, but it didn't show the arrow yet. I was like, oh my goodness. So I turned back to the screen and I just catch that fucking meaty fucking hook this dude drops. Oh my goodness, man, that was crazy. So crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, that I guess is just the general note that is coming for everybody. No one wants to see Wonder Boy get knocked out. I mean, he's the nicest guy
Yeah.
in the sport. I think that he is one of the best ambassadors for this sport. In fact, really, after his time in this game in the cage, I would really like to see him working with Forrest Griffin and doing like community outreach kind of stuff because I think he'd be perfect for that. And
Hmm.
I think I mentioned that in the Discord a while back that I don't think Forrest Griffin gets enough credit for all of the great community stuff that the UFC and him by extension do. Like they had just launched a big facility, all UFC themed for Make a Wish Foundation. Things like that, I think are really important for just because it's a good thing to do, but also for the legitimacy of MMA because MMA is always going to be the bloody, blood and guts, knock people out, hurt each other sport. That by nature is what it is. It's good to have a little bit of the other side, kind of making it a little bit more accessible to people, showing the human aspect of it. And I think that Wonder Boy would be great for that.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So moving on to Ketlin Vieira versus Kayla Harrison. What'd you think?
I think that I'm not gonna say I'm 100% right, and I think I know everything about Caleb, but I think I was a little correct when I said we might be buying into her a little too early because what she hasn't shown us in the UFC is all that she's been talking about. And I don't want to think of her as like this all talk person because she is winning. Don't get me wrong. She did win. It was a convincing win. But all this Hellbows talk and I'm going to make her bleed, like, all this stuff. It's like I haven't seen her have like very good striking, which let me make this point too. It was very unfortunate that this was the matchup between 2 and 3 and the matchup between the champ and 1 was not close to being better, and they both were very, very hard matches to watch. Kayla Harrison did not bring the exciting factor that she had at 300. Like, oh my gosh, she's gonna come out here and finish. It's like once Ketlin like stopped her, like initially, like there wasn't really much more. There was just gonna be a wrestling match. I think Kayla had one good trip. I think she had a really good judo trip, and then we didn't get to see it again. Oh my goodness. She does not know how to shoot a double leg. That was one thing I could not get over her. She would reach in every time to go for the same trip. And after Caitlyn just took a step back, she couldn't get it anymore. You did not see Kayla shoot for a single or a double leg at all. She was just trying to reach in for that little trip every time. It was
I mean,
ridiculous.
it's a judo base, right? I think that.
But like it made me feel like, oh my gosh, she's a lot more one dimensional than I was hoping she wasn't. And the
Well,
fact that I'll let you go. The fact that she's a lot more mid than I wished she was. Like, this isn't some steamrolling threat now. She's going to beat Pena, sure. But, like, this isn't some crazy once in a lifetime generational athlete, in my opinion, after that performance.
well, see, okay, that's why I think that you're going a little hard on her. I could, but I would agree. I mean, to an extent. So let me back it up here a little bit. I thought that this was a fight that did show that there are some cracks in the veneer for sure. That she is not the world ender necessarily. That she was billed as basically what you're saying when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um, I thought that it really kind of accentuated some of the holes in the game only in the sense that I mean she still did as much as she needed to do to get the win, but there are aspects that can be exploited by a fighter who is able to isolate them and take advantage of them. That being said, I don't necessarily think that there are any of these women that I can readily name that are currently on the roster that are going to be the ones to be able to do that. Because and Anthony in the chat is talking about her loss to Pacheco. I went back and watched that fight. Her one loss to Larissa Pacheco in the finals of PFL. That was their third time that they had fought. She had beat her twice already. So and it was a very close fight. but all of what she had done in that fight was similar to all of the other times. Now she's in the UFC, she's getting a lot of different looks that she did not have in the PFL. So that's my overall point. I'm trying to bring it all back into a package here to counteract a little bit of this negativity coming from Chase Parton, to say that she there are things in the game that do need to be shored up a little bit. However, I think that it's more of an evolution in the UFC as opposed to her just not being skilled or having a skill deficit that is insurmountable for her to overcome. Like, I think that she had a really good first round. The body kick and the takedown, was all fine there. She was stuffing some decent stuff from Vieira every once in a while when she was trying to get some off, but I mean, she didn't really go for too much of it, but still able to hold her own in the clinch situations, that kind of stuff. But you're right. When Vieira started to stuff her own takedowns, Kayla did start to struggle. And that is that's something that I think is going to be exploited going forward if they can. That's going to be the $1 million question though, right?
I think it's going to be, honestly, listen, and I know, well, okay, I'm not going to go too far with what I was going to say, but Kayla's striking is a clear issue.
Clumsy, I would say. Very clumsy.
That's a good way to put it. It's like if you go back a couple weeks ago with the Contender series about the Kayla Harrison lookalike that got knocked out by my Venezuelan princess, like this Kayla Harrison in this fight, I saw the resemblance 100%. I'm like, yo, somebody could exploit this. Like Rocky Pennington would probably have a field day standing with her right now. Like, but if she got her to the ground, obviously we saw what Pennington does on the ground. So,
and I mean, and you're making the same case as what the fight would be like with Pena too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, true. But Kayla, I don't know. I feel like there was just a level of inactivity from her that I thought was never gonna be there. Like I didn't want her to come out in the press conference and talk about what she was gonna do, and then me question where that was at. Where's the same energy?
Yeah. No, well, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking a heavy game, which she certainly has been, she's trying to be a little bit more of a personality. You got to be able to go in there and do it in dominant fashion. That's always the note for any of these talkers in general, right? It's like if you're going to talk a heavy game, you need to be in there backing it up, because the second that you don't, this is the exact conversation that arises.
Well, and so the champion we'll get to later, who also does that. Her mouth writes the checks and she can't cash them type of deal. Kayla, I think she has, I don't know if you noticed, people love Kayla. Like she's got a super big fan base. Even at the press conference, they went crazy when she was talking. Kayla's got a lot of fans. I think she's a very smart person. I'm hoping that she, decides to just market herself different, because I mean, obviously, the way she's marketing herself is getting the attention she needs, but it's not reflecting in her fighting. I think that's going to lose her popularity in the long run. Is after we find out, like, yo, she's a decision merchant. She ain't no finisher, guys. Like after we see 2-3 more, like I don't know. Like,
I mean, I think that you jump in the gun a little bit on that, because she did finish her first fight in the UFC. So I mean,
agree.
so that's there you go. That would be my counter to that. Is that what I hope is that these are just growing pains within a new organization. And she's kind of making the point that Pena was making at the press conference. You're the new kid on the block. Like, so if you want to counteract that, then you need to adjust quicker than not. And I'm hoping that she does. That's really where it comes down to for me, is that, hopefully she learns from these fights. Like you said, she's a smart woman. Hopefully she goes back, rewatches her own fight, says, okay, I need to work on this, this, and this, gains the skills that she needs to gain in order to, make sure that these fights are definitive in her, for her, and that going forward, that's just how it goes. I think that there's a potential for that to be the case.
Yeah, and so to Toby's point, she's a wrestler and she's got to have a big mouth to sell her style. It's like, I don't even know, like, she's not, I don't know, man. It's like I don't even see a wrestler when I watch her fight. Like I literally see just a judo specialist. Like it's kind of crazy to me that she's just like some hulking figure that walks around the fucking ring. I'm telling you, I like Kayla Harrison. I want to see her do well, but with these numbers, this minus 1150 tag, I think there's gonna be somebody that comes really, really quick. I think somebody. It's not gonna be current, like in the rankings. It's gonna be a double champ type of thing. Somebody's gonna go for this belt, and if Kayla's there at that time, she might lose, man.
Well, what I had been thinking is, and we mentioned it a little bit earlier, it would be kind of crazy to go the Alex Pereira route and bring over Larissa Pacheco, the one woman who has beaten her before.
How many times
I
we're
mean,
gonna do it? How
well,
many
I
times we're gonna
look,
do
I
it?
mean, it as many times as it's necessary, right? As many
Yeah,
times
true.
as
I
it makes
mean,
sense,
true.
because
Well, we gotta see if Wang Kong. We gotta see if
yeah,
she can get to
yeah,
Shevchenko's level first
that
before
would be
she
kind of
retires,
dope.
of course.
And and there's always potential for champ versus champ. I mean, there's a lot of different options, but it would be kind of neat just for that aspect of it, perhaps. But either way, we'll see what ends up going down with her going forward. But my point is that I think it's a little bit premature to be saying that that she doesn't have it or whatever, like that it's not there for her just because of one somewhat lackluster performance. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a weird counter argument to have. It's like, oh, it's just growing pains in the organization. It's like
Because it
she's
is the
already
top of
had,
the yeah, I know. Yeah, I get you.
but like no, but like she's had plenty. Like she's been in an organization before. Like I don't think that's like a huge trend. It's like not like she's coming off to the streets. Like, oh, Contender Series now the line or the fucking limelight's on you. It's like she's been the top of the hour before. It's like,
Well, I'm just talking
why
about the
are
level of
you?
competition that she's faced before, though.
I mean
You
that
know what I
well,
mean?
that's true. That would be why she was getting her finishes, sure, but like I don't know. It sucks that I feel this way. I'm interested to see what she does because I do like Kayla and she should be the fucking champ. Like she should be on her way. But if she gets beat by the woman that I saw fight, like oh my goodness, like I'm gonna cry.
Well, and so there you go. That's the last week's fight's message to Kayla Harrison is go out there and put all of this conversation to rest. Bring us back
Yeah,
into the fold and remind us all why you are the queen, as you call yourself.
finish Pena basically.
Yeah, exactly. Really, go out and do what could not be done in a fight we'll talk about in a little while here. But before we do that, let's move on to Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. Unfortunate end to this fight. What'd you think?
I think this one was interesting to have Kevin Holland the favorite to begin with. And I do understand because Roman Dolidze is not good on the feet. His stand up is very sluggish. Now, arguably, he's in a fucking weird spot for his weight. Like this is like a 205er facing a fucking 170. Like this is I don't know why they were meeting at this. I don't know why this fight even happened. This is kind of weird because you can even tell in the fight Dolidze is so much bigger than Kevin Holland. So when the wrestling which was obviously going to come, it was going to be an issue no matter what. And then Kevin Holland rolled out of it and broke a rib or something happened. I don't know. In real time, it looked like Delise landed on him with his knee, but when they did the replay, like there was no contact. So I don't know. Maybe he pulled something. Maybe that's more accurate. We want to talk about he broke a rib or he broke his toe. It's like okay, we can sometimes have other things happen than a broken bone in the sport. So I don't know.
For
That's just
sure,
my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, it could have been, tissue tear, could have been a separation of some sort. There's a,
Yeah,
a bunch of different stuff that could have happened there. We'll find out at some point in the future, I'm sure. But rib injury of some kind was what ended up taking Holland out of the fight. Sad for Holland, but a legit win for Delice. It was the action that he was doing that led to the injury. So you got to give him the credit where credit is due on that part. And I mean, what I would say as far as his performance goes, you're right about his striking. I mean, he's not the greatest on the feet, but the takedown was there for him, and he did take advantage of it when he got it. So, I mean that ends up being the deciding deal. An unfortunate injury um, is what ended the fight in totality, but it was based on stuff that he did to make it happen beforehand. So sad ending, but a win's a win for Delete. He sticks around a little bit longer.
I'm surprised you didn't mention anything about his post-fight celebration over the injury and then got his black belt.
Oh yes, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. I did forget that he did receive a black belt. Black belt inside of the cage. is he deserving? But who
Wait,
gave it to him is the question, right?
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, hey, these Georgian fighters, man, they're on the way up. That's all I gotta say. I mean,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did he really like over celebrate it? I don't recall noting that.
oh, they no, him and the coach were going crazy. They didn't give a fuck that Kevin was hurt. They ran around screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, after his last loss, I think that he was just happy to be back in the win column.
No, he won his last fight, I think,
Did he
against
win his
Anthony
last?
Smith.
Oh, it was against. Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot that that fight even happened. I was going back all the way to Imavov. Yeah.
Imavov, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. Well, so fair enough then, I guess. Yeah, I don't really have too much an opinion about the belt other than, what I said in the video about Alex Pereira's black belt, which you can watch right here on the channel, youtube.com/@Yamashow. But,
Ooh,
again,
he's
is he deserving? I don't know.
submit, yeah, you know? I like, we're getting belts and it's like questionable. It's like who have you submitted? And then I can do a quick search, of course, and I go to this dude Roman Delice's record, and he had first 3 fights that he ever had in mixed martial arts. They were submissions. He has not had one since. So what are you getting belts for? Why even get the belt at this point? Like you ain't even going for this shit. Like who needs to know you're a black belt if you're not even gonna fucking attempt the shit in the sport that it's illegal? Like whatever.
We also got to find out what discipline it is. Maybe he got a kickboxing black belt.
Uh,
Which
yeah,
would,
maybe.
I mean, that would be even a little bit more ridiculous, right? But either way. Anyway, though, all of that aside, the only other thing that I did have was that Kevin Holland did release a statement saying that he was sorry to the fans and all of that. I didn't really think that Holland had anything to be sorry about. I mean, he was injured. He was injured. You really can't be too mad at that. However, of course, who decides to come out of the fucking woodwork but Conor McGregor talking his shit, saying that he should have at least gone out there and tried to fight. Well, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, Conor, maybe you should have gone out and tried to fight on your fucking bum ankle in the Poirier fight. How would that have
Pinky
worked
toe.
out? Yeah, well, yeah, that too. I mean, it's just shut the fuck up, dude. Anyway, I just had to throw
I
that in there.
I actually it sucks because I think what sucks the most is his most recent fight, right? Let me double check. Or no, he fought. Oh my god, no, this was so many fights ago. Wow, I can't believe my first instant thought was this motherfucker's injured again. But like he fought Wonder Boy long ago, like
Yeah,
long ago. Like damn, so I don't know why that was my first thought. And like you said, he has nothing to be sorry for. Like I definitely wasn't like Kevin, what are you doing, dude? He was listen, I actually was listening to another I forget what I was listening to, but maybe it was shout out to Base Goddess. She was talking about how the corner was wanting Kevin to go, continue. I don't know if I got that, but maybe they were saying like, "Are you good? Like, can you do it? Can you continue?" It's like, bro, his rib is like, if he's saying his rib is like fucks, like, I don't know. That's kind of crazy, but
yeah. I mean, I remember the corner asking if he, I don't know if they were really like trying to force him to go out or anything. I mean, they were, just kind of wondering if he was good enough to do it. And he said he wanted to, but wasn't. I think that
yeah,
that's exactly correct. I mean, if you can't do it, you can't do it.
hundred
So,
percent.
all right. Well, whatever the case may be there. And I don't know if this is true, but I do have to just real quick take a look at that because we are talking about Roman Dolidze right now. Is that true that Dolidze was the one that took Cheyenne Bays from JP? That's wild
Who's
work.
JP?
JP Bays,
No
other
idea who this dude
fighter,
is.
yeah,
Hmm.
slightly lower level fighter, but Cheyenne. I forgot what her maiden name is, but yeah, Cheyenne Bays was. They were a couple and are now not a couple, and I did not realize that it might be Roman Dolidze who came between the two of them. That's an interesting point to note there.
Yeah, and Anthony makes a great point too. Is he yelled out when it happened? We have seen this before. Fights get ended because of the verbal tap.
Yes,
I thought this was an interesting moment because when he yelled, I also said, "Oh, oh," but like, what was is something about to happen? But then I don't know if it was Delee's day or if it was the ref asked, "Are you okay?" And I'm thinking, I don't know if that's how that works right there.
right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it is like, can you continue?
Yeah,
So
yeah. But that was it was definitely interesting to know.
for sure. Yeah, and we were talking about that on this very show when it came to Walter Walker versus Junior Tafa. right?
Yep, Junior Tafa.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, all right, a lot of strands to keep in line when it comes to all of this. We've got a lot of a lot of different stuff going on there, but any which way, unfortunate end for Kevin Holland. Let's keep the train moving here.
Talk about unfortunate ends.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's get into it. It's Jose Aldo versus Mario Bautista. I mean, yeah. Go ahead. What'd you think?
I just think the scoring system fails if this is a sport for the fans, the scoring system that we currently have is failing the people that make the sport. Or the sport is created for our entertainment. Our entertainment is being let down by the scoring system because of fights like these. Instead of having takedowns, 0 for 10. We need takedowns defended on the other motherfucker stat sheet, because if you defend 10 of them for 10, it's like, what control 7 minutes of control time of you okay, so -7 is yours if you're defending, right, the control time. But you have 10 takedowns defended of 10. That 7 minutes should just like be in the void. It should just not matter at all. Look, 7 in a minute, like, bro, I'm telling you, 7.5 minutes, 7 minutes and 15 seconds of holding against the cage because he can't take down Jose Aldo. And I feel bad because Jose Aldo did think he won that fight. He had his crown on his shit when the judges called it. He was like mad and upset, but it's like, you lost to Merab this exact same way. Like, I'm pretty sure it was like 1 for 12 on takedowns against Merab. So he should have known to do better. But I don't know if anybody but Vegas thought Mario Batista was going to wrestle fuck the entire time. And that's exactly what he did. So shout out to him for being a favorite against a literal Hall of Famer, because this was the dog. This fight right here, I'll explain. I was okay at the end of the night having $0 because I was going to put everything on this fight. Like, this is where all the money went at the end of the night. That's this fight right here. This dog, Jose Aldo. And the fact that at the end of the second round, halfway through the third, I'm sitting here saying it's over. Like, Mario Batista's he's gonna win at this point. There's nothing left. Like, the judging is gonna sway because he's doing all the wrestling. And then at the end of the third, Jose had like a quick moment where he was like on top for a second, and I was like, oh my god, he might sway this round. And then we get fucking unanimous, or no, actually this was split. Okay, I'll give it to him. This was split. But it was very unfortunate because Jose was kind of on a redemption path to like greatness, like a second run at greatness, which is crazy to think about. Like some Kobe shit. Like, he was already the 8 Kobe, now he's 24 Kobe, making a second run at some greatness. Like, it just sucks, man.
Yeah, I mean, he looked amazing in his last fight. That is true. The big note that I have for this fight is, and it's an unfortunate one to note, is that Aldo just cannot do shit when he is clinched up. And that is an unfortunate aspect of an unfortunate hole in his game, an aspect that he needs to work on. But I mean, at this point, it's like, if you can't do it, you can't do it kind of thing, because this reminded me a lot of the fight before his retirement, the fight with Merab. I mean, there was a time in that fight where I clearly remember Aldo being held up against the cage and just kind of like looking around like, yo, what, like, is anybody going to do anything about this? It's like, no, Aldo, you need to do something about this. That is the problem. And I don't want to, I will take all of the hatred that I'm going to get for this assessment, because, I understand what, the other side of the argument is, but I do understand the decision going to Bautista because of how the numbers reflect. Now, you're making a great point there too, that if that is the way that the scoring is working here, then maybe that it's a strong case that there needs to be changes to it. That I think is completely valid. And if they make those changes, then you can be as mad about the robbery as you want when they're implemented and these still go in a wrong direction. But under the current set of assessments that these judges make, the control time did add up in Bautista's on his side of the coin. And, I think also that there's a lot of discounting of Bautista's striking aside from the clinch situations, because in the third round, there was a lot of control from him, but there was some decent striking earlier in the round before he started going into those control situations. So
100 messages, man. Shout out to the fucking chat. Just want to drop in and say that.
Yeah.
Then the point that I want to make is that shout out to Mario Batista. I want to give him some credit, even though I was trying to shit on his performance. They got the clinch broke up in the third. And normally you would see some people get skittish, like, oh, okay, do some work. Okay, break it up. And then they're like, okay, well, I guess I got to stand now because I wasn't doing anything in that position. Mario Batista said, fuck
Went
that.
right back to it.
Right back to it, pushed him right up against the cage. Like Jose, like just accepted it too. He was like, all right, we're going back to the cage. Like, fuck it. And even after his performance, he gets on the mic. And this is one of those crowd moments where if they had tomatoes sold in concession, they'd be lobbing them things from the nosebleeds where Jesus is sitting. All them damn things would be flying down to Mario Batista because he got on the mic and said exactly that. I don't give a fuck. I won the fight. Shout out me. So
I mean, and really, like, you're speaking true, but like, love it or hate it, he's not wrong. I mean, like, again, that's like, I kind of keep going back to this. It's like Jose Aldo, you cannot accept these positions. Also, one thing I wanted to know too is that DC made a good point. Aldo completely has abandoned kicking. Like, where are the kicks? Like, bro, I mean, like, you're not having success when you're being tied up. When you're at range, you're having some limited success when you're getting your strikes off, but you're not mixing it up. If you're going to have a limited bag of tricks and you're not doing shit in the clinch, I like, again, love it or hate it, I cannot be all that mad at Bautista about this. Just in his assessment of it, at the very least, you can be mad at how he fought, but to win the fight, he did what he had to do. And again,
yeah.
if don't hate the player, hate the game, right? I mean, it's like you're saying, if this is not the way that the fans want things to be, if this is not what the organization wants, then you got to lobby for some changes because, this is what you get.
Yeah, this is a winning performance. That's what you're. Yeah, and so like you said with the leg kicks, I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know Jose threw 4 leg kicks. Obviously, he landed all 4 of them because he's a great leg kicker. So why didn't he throw more? I don't know. That is just crazy to see
Yeah, I
from
mean,
one of
not even just
the
leg.
all-time greatest.
Yeah, legs and body. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, there's just not much of anything kick wise going on. I mean, it's not. I don't really remember him going too high with the kicks to begin with, but just any like do some. Like,
yeah.
my point, it's the overall point is that, yeah, it the way that you wanted to see that fight go, for sure. And I saw a tweet that I think encapsulates this all very well. Is that
The
somebody
one
saying
that
like,
said Mario Batista is gonna go against the electric chair next.
"Whoa, okay, that's a little spicy. Rein that
You
in."
didn't see you didn't
Um,
see those?
yeah,
There
that
was a
yeah,
lot of those.
yeah, God, I can imagine. Well, that is not a that is not a view that is endorsed by this podcast. But either which way, the one that I had seen was that it basically said the fans, the fans want to see a certain type of fight and a certain level of competition. So even in victory, Bautista lost is essentially what the gist of the tweet was, and that Aldo was the rightful winner in the eyes of the fans. And I guess you can say that that is the truth, and the fans are obviously on his side. I mean, I think it was our homeboy Henry. Shout out to him in the Discord, who had posted a little video clip of all of the negative comments that were talking about
Yeah.
it on Instagram. I mean, the amount of backlash that this fight is receiving is overwhelming. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are some changes possibly coming down the line, maybe at some point, based on this kind of stuff, because when fights like this happen, especially high profile ones with a fighter of Jose Aldo's status, eventually the commissions are going to start listening to this, and I don't think that even they want these types of fights necessarily. So, you can be as mad about it as you want, because there is a good point to be made that you have justification for it. Everything considered, a win's a win for Bautista, and sadly you have to eat that one.
Yep, it is what it is. I mean, that's how you win in the 2024 UFC.
Well, and we've talked about that in previous shows too. We're in the era of the boring champ right now, aside from guys like Alex Pereira, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But um, yeah, I mean, if you don't like what's going on here, then the game itself has to be changed, because the exploitation of this is going on more and more. And I mean, now we've been talking about the rise of the Dagestani. That's that's their bread and butter right here,
Yep, 100%.
So. Yep. So, unfortunate or not, that is the outcome there. And yeah, be vocal about it if you don't like it, because they'll listen. They'll listen eventually. All right, moving on to the co-main event. This is Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena, 5-round fight for the women's bantamweight title. What'd you think?
I think they got it wrong. I think first I'll say that they got it wrong in my opinion, but it really was a toss up for the first round. That was the only one that was uh decision worthy. Obviously Pena won 2 and 3, and then Pennington won 4 and 5.
Right.
Round 1, nothing happened. Like the fight didn't actually start till round 2, about halfway through it maybe. Um and Pennington wasn't able to do anything on the ground when she was on her back, and thankful that Pena. I don't want to say she's stupid, but she did not show up to Utah until like 3 days before, so she wasn't acclimated to the elevation. And I said at the beginning of the show, I know one person specifically I could say maybe had a little um, wear and tear from the elevation, and that's Juliana Pena. She tired out after the second round, and she did not wrestle again. She wanted to stand with Rocky after after the third round, excuse me. She won the second and third round with her wrestling by holding her down. And I remember saying, if Pena wins this way, we need to change the scoring. Like, because that's exactly that's what happened. I mean, we saw her win just by laying on top of her and like doing nothing. Round 4 and 5, I think, was crazy that Rocky actually came back and won. I don't know if you guys caught it. She got her first knockdown in 19 fights.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not just embarrassing, but like that's like wow. Like Pennington really did show some heart. I'll give you that. She was out there swinging these girls. After the third round, they really did decide to stand and trade. But I don't think Pena won this one. I think the first round, whatever you want to say, decisive or not, I think this is a good indication of why we can't have like individual round scoring, is because like, bro, round 2 and 3 should not matter at the end when she's getting beat on. Like at the end of the fight, she's on her back and Pennington is punching her face very accurately, mind you. So it was really annoying that Pennington got robbed. God, I really hate that Pena won this, but they do have a true mouthpiece in Pena, and they can get so much more money out of her. Pena would have just retired again after and just waited for Kayla to be ready. Like, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with most of this. On the night of, I thought that Juliana might have taken round 1. Upon the rewatch, I kind of went the other way. It was a very, very close round. It was a slow start. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot to judge on in general. Um, it's a tough one in that regard because when the other 4 rounds are so definitive on either side, like you said, 2 and 3 for Pena, 4 and 5 for Rocky, it makes that one round count so much more. And when there isn't much to judge it on, it makes it that much more difficult to really give a definitive answer one way or another. This is another example of what I had mentioned earlier in the Alexander Hernandez fight, where this was an unfortunate card to happen in a place where MMA, even though they've been to Utah a number of times, so it's not like they're completely new to MMA, but just, it's still a little bit less of a commonplace. This might have been looked at differently had this been in Las Vegas. And you're right. Again, this, if we talked about it in the last fight, this is another good example too of a fight that would show that there should be some reform in how this scoring is done, especially when one fighter got dropped. I mean, that I think is a big point of all of this too. I mean, like you said, it was her first knockdown in 19 fights, but regardless, the fact that it happened at all, I mean, shouldn't that count for something a little bit more than just winning the round? I don't know. I don't know what the exact right answer to the fix is, but it just does seem that there needs to be some alteration of the 10-point must. Like you said, perhaps maybe judging full fights as opposed to round by round, is another option. There's a lot of things that could be changed in order to make the scoring a little bit more palatable to what you're actually seeing in the cage and get these decisions a little more correct. This fight, though, in general, I did think was very close because of that first round, and it is tough that that it went the way that it did. But yet again, this goes back to the point that we brought up again earlier. I shouldn't have to go through round one with a fine tooth comb to decide the entirety of the fight. But I mean, I'll counter my own argument by saying she dropped her later in the fight. So there's your counter argument. So there's a lot of factors that go into this one. It's a tough one to encapsulate all of. But if you're strictly going off of round by round, as I said, I thought on the night of that it was Juliana, and on the rewatch that it was Rocky. So tough one. It's just one of those ones that's a tough call, and I can understand it from both sides.
Yeah, it's a tough one to see, but it's one of those championships that the fans we're not really going to give two shits about. We'll go ahead and forget that one next week. They'll pass the belt on to somebody who's more marketable. They'll make their money. It's a business. It is what it is.
Yeah, definitely that. And because I mean, the counter to that would be, oh well, I mean, run it back. If it was that close, if everybody's saying it's that close, then just run it back. But you're right. I mean,
Who
Raquel
gives a
Pennington.
shit?
That's what I'm saying. She's just unfortunately not that big of a draw. So, yeah, the organization kind of gets what they want out of it, and we'll just have to see what ends up with Pennington now, because it's an interesting question where she ends up after that. She's sort of now in a bit of a limbo with Kayla in the equation. So does
Yeah,
she end up, just fighting the third ranked or whatever? I mean, or whatever. I guess maybe Vieira, maybe she fights the loser of that fight.
yeah. I didn't mind what was going down at the press conference between the ladies. So, like, if they had a little, if they're going to be the best of the division right now, if that's what it is, like, if Rocky's not going to retire, if she has no aspirations, if she's like, I think I can hang around here for a little longer, it's like, okay, Kayla, fight Juliana, run it back on the same card again. I like when they do that. I like when they have the same fights, and the same fighters on the cards kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
Run it back, do Pennington versus Caitlin, do Pena versus Harrison, and then after that, win or loser, run the last matchup that you guys got and see what happens. I mean, honestly, that was a fun press conference. I know it was women, and I know maybe not everybody would agree, but like the fans were involved, the ones that were there. And it was a pretty good press conference, especially when you're talking about a headliner whose only catchphrase is Shama, and then the other are like, two women who just want to have really corny fucking cat fights, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess that's really the greatest point of them all when it comes to that fight is it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I had heard a little bit online that people were thinking that this card was a little bit of a dud. But if you thought that, then you were very happy to see this main event. This is Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree Jr. What'd you think of this main event?
I think that this card was not a dud up until this fight.
I would agree with that.
No, I think this card was a ball, maybe a roller coaster is probably very accurate. There was a lot going on, a lot of good things, a lot of horrible things, a lot of weird things.
Yeah.
And then this fight right here started out weird. This one was like, oh my god, we're in the bad universe. We're in the alternate timeline, because Khalil Rountree came out and won the first 2 rounds like convincingly.
Yes,
Like
he did.
It wasn't like, oh my god, he beat up Alex, but it was like, okay, he outstruck the striker. Like, oof, what's gonna happen now, boys? And then we're strapped in, and like in between rounds, I know you guys maybe saw it or maybe you didn't. This dude Alex was coughing and blowing his nose, and it was really rough for him. It looked like I'm sitting here thinking like that. Yo, this is the flu game. This is flu game Alex right now. And when that third round started, I have never felt more correct about when I said Alex reminds me of Anderson Silva, because that third round, people put it simple. He entered the matrix. Like, he really was just in the zone. He said, all right, I'm going to have to finish at this fight. Blew his nose, hawked a loogie or something, whatever he had to do. And man, he really he ended Khalil. And if you watch my predictions video to everybody out there, I was right on the money saying this is going to be a fight where Khalil's going to be one of those dudes that can just randomly not get like knocked unconscious by Alex. He's going to go into the fight and Alex is going to showcase his striking, and we're going to be praying for Khalil to just drop out the fight. Please just lay down. Just don't take any more. And that's exactly what happened. Khalil got broken down and just decimated. Like, it was really crazy to see that third and fourth round. Just wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, Khalil's stock certainly rose with this fight, no doubt. I mean, he looked absolutely vicious in those first 2 rounds for sure, and he fought until he physically could not. A lot of heart, the blood dripping from his nose during the
Yeah,
Octagon
that
interview.
was
I
his
mean,
brain.
yeah, really, exactly. I mean, like, the post fight, I think the words I used on the watch along was that his eye looked lacerated. I mean, he had what appeared to be like a tiger claw mark going across his face, and then of course on the bridge of the nose was quite a rupture there as well. The note that I had about Alex's performance in those earlier rounds was that he kept going for the high kick, and Khalil was really wise to it, which I thought was very impressive on Khalil's part, because Alex, of course, for as fucking massive as he is, can really get those kicks up there and get them, accurate and with a good amount of power quickly. So it was nice to see, because he started the fight that way. He started the fight with, a front kick that Khalil basically caught and tossed off, and it was an odd way for it to start from the inception of the fight. And then he kept going back to that. And I kept saying during the watch along, I'm just like, bro, stop with the kicks. You need to bring those kicks down, dude. Like, they're not working for you right now. And you keep going back to that. Stop going to that well. He reined it in. That was good on Alex's part a little bit later on. And then at one point, Joe Rogan was like, he needs to go back to the head kick. I'm like, shut the fuck up, Joe. He does
Yeah,
not need to go
no.
back to that kick. But then, yeah, when Alex recognized that Khalil had punched himself out, which is basically what he did to an extent. I mean, it was certainly from some of the opposition, of course, as well. But I think that, Khalil just had emptied a lot of the tank, really going for it earlier on. Did not shoot, as he said he was not going to. So again, another credit to him there. If he said he wasn't going to and stuck to it, I guess there's some merit to that. But when Alex started turning up the heat, man, yeah, talk about entering the matrix. He locked in, and it was a fucking thing of beauty, man.
Yeah, I agree. When the fight started, he was spamming low kicks, and then he was going high early. Like, he wasn't setting it up properly, and then when he did throw it, Khalil would blitz, so he was kicking right over him, just like Wonder Boy with Buckley. And then I'm like, obviously, I'm sitting here like, you got to throw the body kick. You got to go back to the low kick, Alex. Like, come on. And then Alex, I don't know why it was so crazy for me to see Alex throw like a straight kick, like the teep that Alex was throwing in the third and fourth round. Like, it was deadly. Like, that was like one of the fastest kicks that I've ever seen somebody throw out there. And it's weird because, like, yes, Alex, he's a great kickboxer, but like normally we're seeing him, he's looping his kicks around, like the low kicks coming, sweeping from the side, the high kicks going, up top from the right or left. It's like when I saw him, he was just walking forward. He's, dropping a combination, weaving, ducking, teep kick, knee, uppercut, body shot. Like, he was just in the fucking zone. It was so crazy to see. It put a smile on my face, not gonna lie. Like, he's doing exactly what he was destined to do, man. This dude's really before the fight, I said Alex is not a god, guys. Let's remember he is human. And I might not believe it now. Like, this dude's, yeah, he's
He's
crazy.
different, man. He's different. That's what I kept saying over and over again on the watch along, bro. He is different. And, I mean, there's something to be said about the odd aura that Khalil had cultivated for himself coming into this fight. So many
Cult.
people. Yeah, well, all right, that's a different story altogether. But for whatever reason, cult aside, he had a lot of people thinking that he was going to win this fight. I think that he certainly showed that he deserved to be in this fight, and that, I think, is the takeaway that cannot be denied. He showed that he is of the caliber to be hanging in the upper echelons of the sport, and that in and of itself is a victory to an extent. And I mean, and also, I was gonna ask how close to stopping was your heart when Alex got dropped there.
Yeah, that it looked a lot worse in the moment. When you go to the replay, like, he got caught with a forearm, and Alex, like, yeah, he did drop, but it was more like where am I? Like, where am I at kind of deal? Because he hit me from like, they were like back to back. It was
Well, yeah, because he
weird.
overswang a kick. That was, we
Yeah.
were talking about with the kicks being spammed a little bit. That's when I was saying that he reined him in. You were exactly right, because he didn't stop throwing kicks, but he started throwing better kicks, and that was a
Yeah.
really big differential there. When he threw the up the middle to the body, there were a couple really nice ones there. I was like, yes, that's what you should be doing.
And you can make the argument this was Alex, on a sick day or flu game, whatever you want to say, not 100%. But it just shows the skill gap between like the UFC matchmakers. They know more than us. I hate to break it to you guys. They know more than us because they will throw 10 rank, 8 rank. They'll throw them in the title shot and they will do well. They will be fine. They won't just get dominated. Like sometimes people are a lot better than we think, and the number doesn't show. Like Khalil could go in against anybody, any of the top 3 right now that are champ. He could go in there and he would be fine against. Maybe wouldn't even get finished, So it just shows the level of competition in the league. It's not that big of a skill gap to be champ. You have to do the right things consistently. You got to not only win, you got to be active, you got to market yourself, and then you got to really just have the right path. So Khalil, you had your moment. Will you or will you not get another chance? Maybe you'll have your Bisping time. Who knows? Who knows? But
Yeah,
as of
yeah,
right now, good showcase. The gold gloves, they looked pretty good. I'm starting to come around to it. There was a moment where the camera was back. It was on the back to Khalil, and Alex was obviously beating the life out of him. And all you could see was just the blood on the gold gloves, like Khalil's blood all over Alex. And I thought, like, wow, like this looks merciless. Like this is nasty. This dude's a
yeah, for
beast.
sure.
So,
That, and also the picture of DC's phone covered in blood
yeah.
was pretty cool too. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, you're definitely right. This was a great fight and a really nice showing of Khalil to the world who might not have been as familiar with him. Um, and yeah, I think that he's certainly a part of the conversation now. And again, that in and of itself is a little bit of a victory. Uh, I do want to close out. I mean, we've been going super long, so I want to close out the segment here. But I want to mention this too, and I won't go on the entire rant. But since Anthony Ganskow brought it up, um, somebody taking down Alex Pereira is the only thing that I think is going to be the deciding factor at this point, and I am tearing my hair out wondering why people are not going for it. I think we've talked about it in the past that a lot of people they want to be the one to do it on the feet. It's a little bit of a hubris type thing with certain people. They believe that they're going to be the one. They want to have that as their shining achievement. It's almost like Michael Chandler chasing Conor McGregor. I want to be the one to definitively put him in the dirt. I understand all of that, but you're seeing what we're all seeing. It's time for somebody to do what needs to be done to actually win a fight against him. And I think that that's really the way that it has to be. So, yeah, I mean, Ankalaev is really the best hope for that, I would say, even though the numbers might seem a little bit different if you actually break them down. Either which way, yeah, I think at this point it's become pretty clear that somebody needs to shoot on this guy in a way that actually gets him to the fucking ground.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I think stop questioning it. Just witness greatness and enjoy what you're seeing, because this dude is 12-2. What's that? His third defense. Oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Like
now beat Ronda Rousey's record for most defenses within a
in a
year.
year.
Yeah, is that
Yep.
what it was in a year? Yeah, so there you go. I mean, super active on top of all of the greatness. So yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's the other the other point to it all, right? Is just to sit back and enjoy what you're getting, because this is a generational type situation that we're in with Alex Pereira.
Yeah, 100%.
So there you
Oh, yeah,
go.
and to Toby's point, Alex, yeah, definitely top 10 all time.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean,
it's
I
no
personally would
debate.
put him higher. Yeah, I mean, I would probably drop Habib off of top 5 and have him over him at the very. He's now defended more times in a year than Habib defended at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say this one title run, like even though his career's not over, this right here, this 1 year, 2024 for Photon, like that's already greatness right there. Doesn't matter who you are. That like UFC careers are so quick. It's like 1 year. That if you get 5 fights done in a year, 4 fights done in a year, like bro, you are cooking.
Yeah, yeah, and to have them all end the way that they have for him in such spectacular fashion, even when he was sick or whatever in this fight. Yeah, I mean, you're witnessing something that's probably not going to be the same going forward for many years. I would say this is a very unique fighter and a
Yeah.
unique situation that he's in. So there you go. That's UFC 307 Pereira versus Roundtree. Overall, pretty fun ride. Some better than others, but a lot to consider. I would say is definitely the takeaway from this card
Yeah.
for sure. All right. Well, like I said, we are running super late. We had a lot to talk about with that. So let's run through Contender Series real quick because there are a couple of decent things to talk about here, and it's on the title of the stream, so we got to get to it, right?
Yeah.
This is week 8 of Dana White's Contender Series, starting off with Jacoby Smith versus Christian Savoy. What'd you think?
This is that nasty knee injury type of thing, right? Where he swung around and jumped on the dude's knee.
No, this was. I mean, that might have been a part of it, but no, this was just a straight up mauling. This was the first
Oh.
fight.
I'm pretty sure that was this fight.
Oh
And I
well, I
wa-
mean, yes, he did. Well, okay, yes, yeah. No, now I know what you're talking about. My bad. I thought you meant an
okay.
injury. An injury. No, that was a wrestling maneuver that he did. Yeah. I mean, did he actually get injured off of it? You're saying?
Oh, he jacked his knee up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, yeah, like
And a lot of people are mad about it, like, oh, that's just such an illegal move. Like, oh, he's such a blah blah blah. You do
oh,
that in camp, you get kicked out. It's like, well, yeah,
I
duh.
mean, we're talking about the same thing here, right? Where he was like, he was like on his back and like swung his
Yeah, and
body
swung it,
around.
yeah, and swung around and like, yeah, landed on
Took
his
his
leg.
took his knee out from under him, kind of, but yeah, I guess hit sort of the side. Okay, I mean, legal move though, right?
Hey, I mean, he got the finish, so hey, you can't really say too much.
Yeah, that and also talking about those kinds of things. Khalil Roundtree, we just talked about, known for his oblique kick to Modestus Bukauskas that nearly ended his career. So that's a little note to add into that conversation.
I mean, you know what? This is mixed martial arts. The sport is to hurt people. You're showing up to the show. You're never gonna see this dude again. Fuck it, go out there, injure him. I don't give a shit. Like,
Well, I mean, if it's a legal maneuver, then it is what it is. I mean,
exactly. I mean, shit. It's not like he headbutt him and like killed him. Like, I mean, he just hurt his knee a little bit. We've seen
yeah.
worse.
Well, either which way, Jacoby Smith is a two-time national wrestling champ, D1 All-American. He's out of Fortis MMA. He's highly credentialed coming into this fight that he ended up completely obliterating Mr. Savoy. That said, he did land a pretty bad illegal shot to the back of the head that had
Oh, he was
Savoy
bleeding. Yeah.
bleeding out of it. Yeah, so that was unfortunate. Really unfortunate blemish on this otherwise rather flawless performance. So I mean, a couple of things there that are a little bit questionable. Perhaps he did. This is all funny now in context because before this fight started, he did say such and such blah 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 blah. I'm John Jones.
There you go. I was exactly about to bring that up. When you said about the elbow in the back of the head, I said, "Oh, this is the guy that said he was John Jones before the fight." I didn't catch the exact context, but I'm glad you said it that way because that's how I heard it too. This dude was saying, I'm John Jones." So he comes out here and he did drop a lot of elbows. I'll give you that one. That was a good thing to see. Like he was really out there for some. He was there for a mauling.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was the other note too, is that he mixed up his attacks super nice when you have such a blank canvas like he had because of how much damage he was doing early. He was able to pretty much stunt and, knees, punches, elbows, wrestling, the whole goddamn shebang was thrown in there. And, it was fun to watch. All of those unfortunate aspects are, asterisks on it, but it is what it is. I mean, you can't really argue with 6 takedowns in round 1, though. I mean, come
Yeah.
on, man, that's pretty heavy. We'll see what he does in the big show. Not much to say on the Savoy side of things. I mean, maybe he just was not able to overcome the swarm, and perhaps he'll be coming back at some point in the future. But that was certainly Jacoby Smith's night.
All right.
All right. Yes. Moving on to Abdullah Irami versus Torres Finney. Folks, Torres Finney has finally gotten his contract. Sound the air horns. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, Torres Finney, the Contender Series GOAT. He's all time 3-0. He's got 2 finishes in 3 fights with the UFC Contender Series. He's actually going to get his shorts raised in the Apex. I think it's very likely.
Only dude with a highlight reel that can be solely comprised of Dana White's Contender Series appearances.
Exactly. And Dana, he was just being okay. He was being a dick before not giving him a contract, but then he felt bad at this point because at the end he's like, there you go. Everybody and blah 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 such and such, they would tell you that you fought different this fight. It's like, brother, you gave him a fucking fat guy. I mean,
yeah, I mean, and very much, I guess, a kickboxer as well, right? So I think his primary base was boxing and kickboxing. So it's like, yeah, he wasn't really exactly primed for the wrestling that was coming his way.
yeah, it was kind of a pity fight. It was like, okay, let's get this guy a contract because if I don't, it's gonna look real bad. So we got to get him a fight where he can show off, and then we'll give him in there, and then he can get beaten. I don't care, like whatever.
Well, on the watch along, we were saying it would have been the funniest fucking shit of all time if he had not gotten that contract again.
Yeah,
Like, bro, that would have been hilarious.
I just feel bad for him because like he obviously, like, he keeps saying like, this ain't the end of my journey, like this and that. It's like, it's obvious you are trying your life to get to the UFC. Like, you're gonna tell me you're not gonna be exhausted, like mentally, physically, like your goals, like you already are gonna feel like you've reached your goal because this is what you've been working for the last fucking 2 years, is like to get to the UFC. So the fact that I'm expecting you to have more now that you got there, it's like, you got to be a real warrior, man. So we'll see. Because like we talked about, this dude is severely undersized for middleweight. He is 5'8". That, like, it's just going to be hard for him no matter what. So
Yeah, for
shout out
sure.
him.
Yeah, and like we had said in his previous fight from the season, now that he is in the big show, finally getting his contract, I mean, everyone on the planet is going to know exactly what they're getting out of him. He's going to be the easiest person to train for on the planet if you can
Plenty of
stuff.
film.
Yeah, God, yeah, more film than you know what to do with, all showing the exact same thing. That's, I think, the
Yeah.
biggest point. So it's like, I don't see a great deal of success going forward for him at this point right now, based on all of what we have seen. But this is your time, brother. I mean, go out there and show that we're all wrong. Show that we're crazy, because now you have the opportunity to do so. And as you said, your journey is just beginning. This is not the end. This is the beginning. So now is the time to show it.
Yep.
All right. So moving on to a rather spirited fight here. This was David Martinez versus Xavier Franklin. Enjoyed this fight. What'd you think?
This one, so this was back when I was battling internet connection still, and I was flipping through these ones just to try to get them on the board. I don't remember this one too clearly, so refresh me.
It was a very competitive fight. Yes, the blue gloves are very nice. Shout out
I
to the
agree.
MMA holes. This is a very competitive fight, though. Yeah, the low kicks for Martinez were definitely the difference maker. Both these guys were. It was a little bit slow in round 1, but 2 and 3 really ramped up. You could tell that there's a little bit of greenness on both sides, but a lot of heart on both sides as well. They both ended up showcasing a good amount of their abilities. Their movement was both. Honestly, it was a very close match because it was a very evenly matched, based on just who the two of them are as fighters. That being said, what my overall assessment was of this fight, on both sides, was that they're both kind of what I'd call archetypical bantamweights. You know what I mean? There's not really any one thing that stood out from either of them that would like set them apart necessarily, but they were both solidly constructed bantamweights that both could probably do pretty fine. And I think even you had mentioned Xavier Franklin had come up in some other discussion on the podcast, and you had said that he's probably going to end up in the big show himself at some point. I think that that's an accurate assessment.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, good fight. And again, the leg kicks were really what the decision maker were for Martinez. Good performance. He has that extremely serious and defined look on his face when he fights. So the guy means business. And the one other note that I had, just I thought was a little odd, was that why did Franklin's corner never ice his fucking leg? Like, I'm looking there in between rounds, and like his leg was beaten to shit. I mean, it was welted up on both sides, and not one time did they put ice on it. It was just a little strange to me, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
So good fight, enjoyable, and we'll go over all the contracts, but deserved for Martinez there, and as I had mentioned, I think Franklin will probably be back as well.
Yeah.
This fight though, this was if that fight that I just talked about was a spirited one, this fight was a really really fun one. This is Alberto Montez versus Carlos Calderon. Were you able to catch this one?
This one had some of the best like wrestling scrambles. Like for these dudes, like I don't know if these dudes were both jujitsu guys or if this was like a stylistic matchup. Oh, like one's a striker and one's a jiu. But you would never tell that one of these guys was not an elite grappler. This is one of the most high level like rolling sequences like you'll see in the first round of this fight. The fact that this dude has 5 submission attempts in this fight is kind of crazy. Um, but this fight was really fucking good. Really, really good.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of action in this fight, going both ways, both sides really putting a lot out there. The one thing that I would say on that is that I think Calderon overextended himself a little bit early in the fight. He's a wild guy to begin with. The way that he swarms, he's throwing out some wild striking attempts. Ended up spinning himself around a little bit, tripped himself up, nearly got caught in the anaconda twice. He just needs to rein himself in a little bit in general, get a little bit more tight with the fundamentals. But obviously a tough guy because, as I said, I mean, he nearly got finished at one point and was able to stay the course through what looked like a very tight choke. And then this guy Montez, I mean, you're saying about this elite grappling and the wrestle game as well. But I mean, Montez going for a fucking Peruvian necktie. What a
Yeah.
Chad.
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh, when I saw that, like I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, what is he even doing? This dude's pulling shit. Like he basically he pulled out the equivalent of Latin to me. Like that was crazy. He just pulled out like the most ridiculous thing ever. And he almost got it. And yeah, he actually did have Carlos in a choke that was like gurgling him to a point.
For sure.
So the fact that he got out was insane. But yeah, like I think honestly, I know we're talking about the wrestling and the scrambling. Alberto Montez did win those scrambles, but I think honestly the defensive scrambling by Carlos was really fucking impressive. Like I think that's more impressive to me than what Montez was doing. When I was watching it, I was like, "Holy shit, the way that he's avoiding getting these chokes on him or avoiding getting in a position where like, oh, now he's got my back." Like he was with it. They were in a good sequence.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And what I was going to add to that is just that's really a testament to why he just needs to rein in a little bit of his offense. Is because I mean, obviously, I think that might. This is speculation, of course, but I think that might have been. It's like, well, if I'm this good at the defense, then I can stand to be a little bit wilder with my offense. And if he just brings that down a little bit, gets a little bit of more of a control to what he's doing, I think this guy is going to go far. I think we'll see him back for sure.
Yeah, I do agree because I remember how he was fighting. Like I'm trying to think, he was fighting just like he just walked in and he was just ready to drop bombs, which is crazy for how good his wrestling is. And then like, I'm looking at his record. He's been sub twice, and like that's not fucking fun because like, bro, his grappling is good. Like, where were you training if they were subbing you, my guy? So he's someone to look out for sure. I know the record's not going to show it, but like he could show up on short notice and be an underdog that I would for sure put money on.
Yeah, absolutely. He strikes me as the type of guy that even with a loss on the Contender series might end up getting the call at some point just to fill in on, like you said, short notice kind of deal or
Yeah.
somebody dropping out on a card or whatever. Like I could certainly see him getting the call even with a 6-3, which does not look great, but that being said, it does not equal up to what we saw in that fight. So yeah, really nice performance even in defeat. And on the other side of the equation, Alberto Montez, man, Vitz King, who I do the watch alongs with, he said that this is the guy that he's watching out for the most now, and I understand why completely. This guy is certainly one to keep an eye on, and he is out of Venezuela, by the way. I kept
Yep.
saying that he was out of Colombia on the watch along. I was incorrect. He is out of Venezuela. I'm going to make sure that I remember that and not make that mistake again.
I'm loving to see the diversity. Like I love to see my Americans on the card. Don't get me wrong. We got a bunch of them. But to see, Spain, Venezuela, Poland, Kazakhstan. It's like, man, shout out you guys because this is we're getting to see all glimpses of the game, not just one, Americanized version of it.
Absolutely. It's an international sport, and Chase Parton is Mr. International if those flags behind him didn't give it away already. So I agree completely. I love to see more.
Venezuela's incoming, man. I gotta get it now.
At
I
this
gotta
point, I
get
mean,
it now.
there's so many people that are getting these wins that, yeah, I think it's a necessity, right?
Yep.
All right. And to round it all out, the featured fight of this week was, I think it's pronounced Dyer Nergashe, or Dyer Nergashe versus Bartosz
Yeah, good
Szeszczek.
luck.
Yeah, Szeszczek is what I'm going with. I think that's what it is. Um, this was I mean, compared to the two fights that came before it, this was a little bit of a boring one until it wasn't. The head kick that ended it was pretty sweet, but boring up until that point.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it was boring up to this point because I remember thinking the whole time like this when I look at Contender Series, I'm watching to see mainly like the finished product kind of deal. This isn't somebody that's coming into the league that needs more developing. Like they're coming in Contender Series, they're gonna get a big win, and then they're ready to just get skyrocketed type of
Right.
deal. So when I see people like this and I'm watching them fight and I'm like, oh brother, this is the finished product. Like, oh my fucking god, like your ceiling is so short, And then I'm watching this entire fight and I'm like, bro, can you stop throwing this fucking head kick? Like, yo, you're not gonna land this shit. And then what do you know? He lands the fucking head kick.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Funnily enough, in this fight, aside from the finish of it, really there were a bunch of other odd things going on that were a little bit more like noteworthy than the head kick.
The dude's fucking well, he
So
kept touching his face. Yeah.
generally I'm not one to like dwell on those kinds of things. Obviously, there are some high level fighters who have ticks like that. Of course, we know Diego Lopez with the throat touching, Dustin Poirier with the shorts grabbing. There are a couple of high level guys that have ticks. This tick is one that I think does need a little bit of discussion, just because it's a little bit more pronounced than the other ones that I just mentioned. When he goes, so basically what Nergashe does is that he goes, I believe, to his right eye, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that he primarily like brings his hand to, but he covers and closes his eyes for a brief moment. They talk about it
Presumably wiping the sweat, I would say.
for sure, but it looked a little bit more than that, even just like just continuously going
Lights are
back to
too
it.
bright, maybe.
I
Like
I think it's just something that he just does, like, without thinking about it subconsciously. Whatever the reasoning for it is, the commentary had mentioned it, and I was thinking about it not even having heard that at the time. I'm like, if somebody can time a shot that lines up with that, I mean, you're leaving yourself wide open for a split second there every time that you do that, and he's doing it throughout the entirety of the fight.
yeah.
So it's definitely something to keep an eye on for his future fights here. It's like he goes in, touches, and then really hard closes his eyes. And I also wanted to mention, I'm not trying to put this on him if it's not the truth, but he might have a mild form of Tourette's, possibly. Again, I'm not saying this as like, I'm not trying to meme on the guy. I'm not trying to clown him in any way if it's a legitimate medical condition or any of that kind of stuff. But if you saw him in his post fight interview, he also does. Again, this is maybe a little bit of a funny comparison, but it's just the first thing that I can think of that makes most sense. He almost closes his eyes tight, like Tweak from South Park a little bit, where he blinks. Like, you can tell the difference between a normal blink and then what he does, where he blinks like normal and then he goes hard, like bears down on the blink. So I'm just saying all of that as the conversation surrounding this fighter. I'm not trying to be negative about him at all. This is just the reality of what I'm seeing there. It just things to keep in mind for his future fights, because I think that they are somewhat exploitable. At the very least, his tick in cage certainly is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I mean, that was a performance that unfortunately in a weight class that we don't have many decent people, you can earn a contract. So
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think light heavyweight's not, not super dry, but
but he's 10-0, he's
right,
from
right.
the mountains. Like he knows how to wrestle, right? Like, come on, we'll see.
We'll see. Absolutely. On the other side of the coin, as soon as I saw that Sejcek or Bartosz that he's trains with Mikhail Olashechuk. I said, ooh, this might not be a great night for him. I mean, not trying to be a dick there, but Mikhail Olashechuk has been on quite the backslide. Um, and
Yeah,
of
Poland,
course,
man. Jeez.
yeah, I know. And, that's the one heritage that I rep a little bit from that side of my family. And it's really making me sad to not see more Polish power coming through right now. So we need an infusion from Poland here in a real way. Sadly, Bartosz was not that. And then the last thing that I have in the notes is, did you catch that his corner man spit
Spit,
water?
yeah, we've seen that before. I don't know why that is. Like, I'm trying to think of like a scientific reason. Like, okay, you drink the water, and like obviously it's to refresh the entire face, maybe. But why would you want the room temperature water then? Why not get a spray bottle? Why not just get a spray bottle?
I don't
I
think
don't
you can
know.
have him in the cage. Maybe that's part of it. Yeah, I think you're only allowed to have certain things in there. But either way, I would think that even if you're trying to mist it, there's probably better ways to disperse the water evenly that doesn't involve it going inside of your mouth.
It's a lot of trust that they have, man. Like that dude, and he was like that's just what they do. Like he was just sitting there, like he closed his eyes, water. All right, ready to go. Just
Yeah, that was certainly something. Shout out to him, I suppose. I would be concerned about him in the big show as well for all the reasons that we just went over. But
watch out for him getting an infection since he just likes to have his coach spit all over his face. Like he's probably doing other random shit in his gym.
I mean, yeah, well, we've seen the conditions in Eagle FC's,
Yep,
gym there. They're slipping and slide, literally like a slip and slide of sweat going on. So staph infection, keep an eye out for that for sure. But more so than that, I mean, that could be something like that. But really, the tick is what I would be most concerned about because it's something that is just very pronounced and could be a big problem for him.
100%.
So yes, 5 fights, 5 contracts. What'd you think of all of that?
I think Dana is getting a little too. Maybe he's realizing that handing out contracts, like actually giving them out, is like getting more ratings. Maybe I don't know, because while yes, some of these people, most of them do deserve a contract. We're getting to a point where it's like, yo, you're giving. I get it's like each episode is designed to give out contracts, but it's like, yo, everybody, not everybody need to be in the UFC. Like I could go seeing them get another opportunity in the Contender Series. Like it's not like we're getting to. I feel like we're getting to the point where it's like American Idol. It's like it's no longer about the performance; it's about the story. It's like, okay, yeah, he was a drug addict a couple years ago. Contract, fuck it, let's go.
I mean, I don't think any of those were really necessarily that this go around anyway. But yeah, I mean, there is probably a little bit of a case to be made that certain ones of these guys might have needed another fight before getting the contract. I do agree that they're being a little bit liberal with the contract giving on some of them, but an infusion of new talent is not a bad thing. And um, if it's not their time, then at least it's fodder for a better fighter to possibly make a name for themselves off of a win. So I don't think it's terrible for any of these guys. You can't deny Finney any longer, so like that made sense. Smith obviously was getting one. Martinez and Montez both made sense, and then Nurgashai did get the knockout. So I'm not super mad at it, but I would think that maybe he would have been the one that could have had the knot.
I think also maybe I'm just bitter because I'm not getting to watch these live. So when I go back to it and I know who's got a contract for the most part, I know who the winners are and whatever, and I see who the roster's updating kind of deal. So maybe I'm just a little bitter, and maybe I'm watching the performances with a different view. Like, oh, this is somebody who's in the UFC now, and I have to see that it's not a performance that I would say is UFC worthy, rather than watching the performance and saying, oh, they impressed me. Then now they deserve to go the next stage. But it is what it
Yeah,
is.
no, I would agree with that. I mean, look, the Contender Series is where you're supposed to show out, and that's what you want to see out of these guys. We are getting later into this round of it, so perhaps they front loaded it a little bit. So, there might be a couple of guys later on that aren't as fireworks as what we got earlier in the run, because I think that this has actually been a pretty good year for the Contender Series overall. But I don't think you're wrong to want the fireworks. That's DC to a T, right? When he's doing his power rankings, he's as harsh as you can get on these guys, and I think he's right in that assessment.
And like I'm now thinking about it in my head, it's like, should this, maybe this is a good discussion we could have. Should this be the most exciting and most entertaining, the hardest that these dudes have fought, in their career? Not up until the point, like I'm talking about in general. It's like maybe, okay, a title shot is different, but like up until that point, would this be the moment that they have to work the hardest and show out the most? This would be the best performance in theory you should be seeing from these guys because they're working the hardest for this moment.
Yes, absolutely, 10,000%.
So, and then if you look at them and you're like, okay, is this and when you look at it with that lens, like, is this the best performance that I'm ever going to get out of you? And it's something like that. Like when you look at Montez and Calderon, it's like, I can understand that being one of the best performances you've ever put on. Like those dudes were doing shit that I couldn't even pull off on my best day. Anybody else would have trouble doing that. Torres Finney, we've seen him 3 different times, so that one's a little different. But would you say all 3 of those fights are going to be the most exciting, exhilarating fights of his career? I don't know. I feel like that's an interesting discussion to have. But I don't know. Will everybody that gets the contract be something in the UFC? No. Will they all be exciting? No. But I do believe for the most part, I agree with you that this should be the ceiling of their performance. At least as of right now, some people are going to get better, of course. This should be the ceiling, the most exciting portion of their career right now.
Yeah, and you would think that they would be able to make it that, or should have that as their intention, considering that they're also fighting a person who is fighting for the same goal as them. I mean, like, you're relatively in the same boat as far as, fighting outside of the organization and now wanting to break into it. So you both have the same amount to lose and to gain in this fight. It should absolutely be that. And some guys are just going to express it differently. I mean, that's I think really where this Nurgashai comes into the equation. I mean, it was a very slow and plodding, boring fight up until the head kick, but the head kick did get the knockout. So it's not always going to be people who are going to be putting on fireworks shows just because that's not the type of fighter that they are. So maybe there's a little bit of a sliding scale to how you have to look at it to an extent.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere, it falls somewhere in the middle of all of that, I guess.
Good deal.
Indeed. All right. So, I mean, I guess that is about it, considering that we have gone super long today. Thanks for everybody who's been hanging out. Did want to mention that Damp Butthole, great name, did say that he is watching in the Yama G-string. Brother, when the merchandise comes out, you'll get one of those for free. Thank you for putting that idea into my head. That'll be in the shop. Absolutely. We will be back next Monday, hopefully. One thing to note here as we close out is that I live in the great state of Florida, and we are expecting a very bad storm coming down, direct hit right down the pipeline to us. So we're going to have to play the next couple of days to weeks by ear. But if all goes well, we will be back next Monday to talk about all of the upcoming fights that we have. We've got a card this weekend that is Royval versus Tyra. And we will be doing individual watch-alongs for that, weather permitting. You can watch me and presumably my co-host Vitz King right here on the Yama channel. That's youtube.com/@Yama Show. And Chase Parton, I know you can tell them where they can find you.
They can find me at youtube.com/@CP Smalls.
All right, there you go. Hopefully you could hear him. Your mic sounds a little weird for some reason, but
shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. youtube.com/@CP Smalls is my man. If you could not hear him, make sure you follow my boy. Oh yeah, and we did say we are going to get back to this real quick. I know we're closing up here, but Anthony Ganskow does say that Charlie Campbell is a beast, and him fighting Roofy will be a banger. Yeah, that fight does have banger potential. Campbell has been showing that he's got some decent chops in the cage, and Roofy is a fighting nerd. So that team has been surging very steadily. So I want to see if Roofy can continue to put on for his team in that way.
Yeah, he's the last one to come up and fight on their team, so it's going to be a good one to close out the year. I'm excited to see what he can do. He impressed last time, and he's been putting out some training footage, but I don't know, man. Big shoes to fill to keep going with the team undefeated,
Indeed, absolutely. Oh, and I guess yeah, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the two darlings of the Discord. Josh Van versus Cody Durden has been announced.
Yeah, that one is going to be a serious banger. Please do not miss that one, guys. That one, I don't even know how I'm going to choose who's going to win that one in predictions video, but I can tell you it is going to be a fucking light show.
Yeah, absolutely. Two great fights coming up. We got a lot of great fights on the horizon here. It's been a great year for fighting so far, and it's only getting better. So make sure that you come back. If you're not already a subscriber of the channel, make sure that you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to my boy Chase Parton, and also like the stream. It helps get it out to more people who also might be interested in what we're talking about here. Until next time, everybody, this has been last week's fights. Thanks for everybody who's been hanging out with us. We appreciate you all, and we will see you in the next stream. Fight on.
Change.